Hi, welcome to TTBoy TV. Today we have a very important guest. He is a big part of the secret porn puzzle. Yeah, you know, this guy owned a company, right? Started a company way back. He is part of AVN, the notorious, unequalable AVN
notorious
awards, ceremonies, and all that. So please welcome Gary Miller.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So we've known each other a long time. I just can't remember when we met, but probably a few times, right?
Yeah, a few times. Probably right around the time you got in the business, which was, I don't know when, in the 90s, right?
80s.
In the 80s?
Yeah.
Wow. What year was it?
89.
So we've probably known each other since then.
I remember your brother doing an interview on me. A little interview, you know, maybe you guys are starting a new style movie or something like that.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it was 92 in front of Track Tech Studio in Canoga Park. He did held the handheld camera maybe when it first came out.
Right.
It was 93, right? But pretty early on.
I think you're right. I think it was 92 or 93, and you're talking probably he was using a Canon L1 at the time.
Probably, right?
Yeah.
Something like that, I remember. His brother was Mark Stone, and he's deceased right now, and we're sorry about that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Very nice guy. Always had a big, bright, happy personality. You know, that's what I always saw from him. I never saw him ever upset, you know what I mean?
No, he always had a good, positive, up energy.
Yeah.
And he loved what he did. He always wanted to be entertaining people, and that's what he was all about.
Where'd you guys grow up at?
We grew up in Rochester, New York.
I could have sworn I heard East Coast there.
Right, yeah. We didn't grow up out here.
Yeah, that's cool. You know, my family's from Bronx, Brooklyn.
Right, yeah. You're an East Coast guy, too.
But I get there's a lot of questions, you know. You have a lot of interesting information I don't know.
Okay.
And I know a lot, right?
Right.
Yeah, we used to hang out with all the distributors, you know, East Coast, you know, I mean, I did all myself, like I said, right?
Right.
So I go meet everybody at their offices nationwide.
Sure.
So I got a lot of information from a lot of people, but I don't have yours. So we're going to get it, right?
All right, well, we'll try, right?
Yeah, thanks. So how did you get into business?
So, like I said, I'm originally from Rochester, New York, and so back in the day, was a professional musician, and wanted to make that, my thing. Same thing with my brother. So it was a situation where, like, okay, well, if we're going to get serious about this, we got two choices. We should either move to New York City or move to Los Angeles. And if you do country, you can move to Nashville, but we didn't do country music. So we're like,
You did rock and roll, I guess?
Yeah. Okay. Hard rock music, basically, yeah. So it was like, geez, I think I'd like to go out to LA. I've had enough of the snow and enough of the freezing ass cold stuff. So I'm ready for a big change. So instead of going 400 miles away, went 3,000 miles away, or however it is from there.
So nice out in California, right?
Oh yeah. So it was a lot better. So we came out here to pursue the music career. That's how we wound up out here. So then, How
did that go? I'm just curious.
Well, we had some success, but you get to a point in your life where, okay, do I want to be 50 years old and still sleeping on the floor in somebody's house? I mean, how much of success are you? Sure, we had a lot of success, but we never really made a lot of money,
What was the name of your band?
Well, we had a couple of different bands, but the one that you probably knew from back in the day when you were around was a band called the Stingers.
I remember. Yeah, now I remember that name.
Right, exactly. So, so that was it. So what wound up happening is, before the Stingers, when we moved out to LA, then when you come to LA, if you're trying to be an actor in the entertainment industry, most of those people are getting jobs as waiters, waitresses, bartenders, or whatever at night, so they can go on auditions during the day trying to get gigs. So when you're a musician, it's sort of the opposite. So you're working during the day so you can have your nights free so you can play gigs, do rehearsals, play shows. So then you get to the point of, okay, well, what am I going to do to make money? So you're at the time, you're like, I'll do whatever I have to do to make money. Well, if you have the gift of gab and you're able to do stuff, back in those days, there was a lot of phone sales stuff going on. This is before automatic dialers or anything like that. So, people were getting jobs selling printer toner or whatever. So we would get different phone sales jobs, and if you were good at it, you could make decent money, and you could work for 5-6 hours a day, and then be off from 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you have your night times free. So that's how we did it. So one day we were renting a house. One day I came home from the gig that I had, and my brother says, "Hey, I got this new job," and I go, "Really? What is it?" He goes, "I'm selling porn." I said, "Porn? What do you mean? You pick up the phone, you call people at their house and say, 'Do you want to buy a porn movie?'" He goes, No, man, it's not like that." He says, "You got all these TV stores and video stores and stuff, and they're selling video machines." This is back in the day of VHS and Beta.
What year exactly was this?
This is like 1982.
82?
Yeah. So he says they need movies to give their customers who buy video machines. So you sell it to the video stores and the adult bookstores. He explained that to me. I was like, oh, okay. Because you think it's a little weird. You're going to call someone in their house and try to sell them a porn movie?
Right.
It's crazy.
I would have bought it.
You would have bought it. But
because you couldn't find them, you know what I mean? But yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to know that I was talking to you.
I bet there was a lot of people that really, because it was really hard to get pornos in 1982.
Right. But
by the way, were you a porn fan at all at this point in time?
Oh yeah, when you're, I wasn't rabidly watching porn because it was just transitioning. Like all the old guys that were sort of on their way out or still going through the transition. Back in the 70s and early 80s, they used to sell 9mm films or the big 35 or 16 millimeter to the Pussycat theaters and the different porn theaters that were out there. And then when Beta and VHS came into being, then it was a whole different story. Then it was like, okay, somebody could rent it and watch it in their privacy of their own house. They didn't have to go to a sex shop or a big porn theater on Hollywood Boulevard or wherever it is to sit there with a bunch of other people and watch porn, which a lot of people don't want to do.
I don't think most people in this new generation understand that changed the global dynamics of the world to watch porn.
Sure.
I mean, to have porn in a little cassette that you could watch, this wasn't going on yet, really. In 1980, it started 81, but it was crazy. I mean, what it did, can you imagine, the idea that you're a caveman, whatever, way back, right?
Drawing pictures on the cave.
Oh, wow. Dragging out to a caveman. And now you could actually see this. I mean, not a caveman at that point, but the evolution of it.
Yeah.
I mean, to get there and watch this in the house, the beauty, everybody, whatever people think, that's bullshit. People love the way the girls look, and the girls probably like the way the guys look, whatever.
Right.
You love to look at sex. I've seen old porno pictures from the 1800s.
Sure.
They were doing it.
Yeah.
Because people liked it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just like some fucking crazy thing, I think.
Yeah.
That the VHS now you can have in your house. So anyways, go ahead.
So you're right. So now you can have it in the privacy of your own home. So so-called regular people, not crazy guys like us trying to be rock stars and do all this other shit. Right. We didn't give a fuck what anybody thought. So, going to a sex shop and throwing a quarter in a machine, that was no big deal. That was just a fun kick, to do. Or you're having a stag party for someone that's getting married, so you get some 9mm film and get a projector and you're watching it and everybody's getting drunk and having a good time and
not even audio, right?
Yeah, sometimes not audio, but you're just laughing your ass off just for fun and kicks and somebody's got this stag movie and we're all going to watch this, and that was it. So but then once it came out with beta and VHS and people had machines and the machines got cheaper and the cassettes got cheaper, then it was like, people can buy this and watch it in the privacy of their own home. So more people started doing it.
Right, because it was very expensive.
Yeah,
in those days, right? When you're selling, it's got to be.
Well, we were selling Debbie Does Dallas, Deep Throat, Behind the Green Door, Talk Dirty to Me. Those movies, they were all $55 for a VHS and $52 for a beta for one cassette.
So in 1982,
yeah,
you got that job. And you're selling the tape for $55.
Yes, to video.
And it only costs. Well, I hear stories that it costs up to $9 a cassette, a good cassette in those days. I heard stories, but I don't really know. Do you know that?
I don't know what the actual manufacturing costs were because it was more expensive though back then because it was new technology. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like $1 to make a cassette and these guys are making $54. It wasn't that way. It was like, I don't know, $25 or $30 per cassette to get it duplicated.
Whoa, so that much, really?
Yeah, I mean, it was, it was new technology back then. So just like everything, new technology is expensive. Then as it becomes more in use and more advanced, then the price comes down. Yeah. That's just like anything. And then more people have access to it. More people can afford it.
Yeah, really? So you think it was $29?
Yeah, it was
half of it, maybe.
Yeah. It was expensive back then.
I heard a lot of stories about a lot of people, starting up duplication labs sideways.
Oh yeah.
And then Russ was one of them I had heard. You ever heard that?
Russ from VCA.
Way back.
Yeah, I heard that that's how he got started, but
yeah, so I'm not wrong.
Right.
You would know better than me.
No, but I can't say that I know he was doing that, but I can say that I heard what you heard.
Right. We don't want to tarnish his name because he was a stand-up guy,
right?
A good guy in the business, had a big company, so we're not going to tarnish his name. But sometimes you got to do a little, Mickey Mouse stuff to get started.
Yeah, and he wasn't the only one that was doing that stuff. I mean, there was all kinds of people doing whatever,
Yeah, it's like Wild West, huh?
Yeah, it was crazy.
So your brother comes home and says, we're going to sell...
He says, I got this job selling the porn movies like I told you. And then once he made it clear to me that, no, you're not calling people in their house. You're calling people that own stores that need this product. Because a person comes in, they buy a video machine. Now I can watch movies at my house. There's only one problem. I don't have any movies. Where do I get them from? And I'm not just talking about porn movies. I'm talking about anything. Anything you wanted to watch, you needed something to watch. Well, they were expensive back then. Like if you wanted to buy a mainstream movie, they were like $150 for a cassette. So who's going to buy that? Nobody. So the video stores would buy them and then rent them to people.
$150. Right?
Yeah, I mean, they were a lot of money. So except for then I believe it was 1984. I'm not sure if that's the exact year. But then Paramount Studios put Raiders of the Lost Ark on cassette, and they sold it for $24, which was unheard of at the time. They said...
What year?
That was, I believe, 1984, I think.
Okay.
So that's what they did it, and then the price started coming down because the mainstream studios, it's been the same way for years, right? So back in the 30s and 40s, they're making these movies, people are going to theaters. Then the 50s and 60s, TV comes out, and then everybody goes, oh, well, if we put our movies on TV, no one will ever come to the theater. Well, that was bullshit. People still went to the theater, even though they were able to watch the movies on TV. So then it was the same thing. Every time new technology, oh, geez, if people can watch these in their house, they'll never come to the movie theater. Well, they did, So that's, that just seems to be how it always is as new technology comes out. So he says that's what he's doing. And I'm like, wow, can you make any money at it? He's like, yeah, I mean, if you're good. And I said, well, like, the first thing as a guy, you're like, well, what do the girls look like? Are they hot girls? Or are they these ugly looking skanks, these beasts or whatever? He's like, oh, he shows me this movie. It was called Bad Girls. I forgot who made it.
But I thought I've heard of that.
Yeah. You can. I'm sure you can look it up to find out who made it.
I saw Bad Girls, 1981.
Wow.
It had a pretty girl named Michelle Bauer.
Yeah, I don't remember the girl.
She looks fucking cute.
Right. So for back then.
She was cute as hell. John Leslie.
Right. Remember the famous John Leslie.
Richard Pacheco.
Right.
And
yeah, all these famous guys. So I was like, wow, these chicks are hot. Holy shit. This is what porn's looking like now? And you're like, wow. So then the next thing you know, so he's going along, selling the movies. We're still working on the band, doing all that stuff. And we were hanging out one day with the guy that owned the company he was working for.
Who was that?
That was a guy by the name of Greg Schell. And his father-in-law, Marty Krause, his father-in-law at the time, owned the company. So we're all just hanging out, having a good time, and he goes, hey, so I heard you do phone sales too. And I said, yeah, I'm working I think I was selling telephone systems or something. And he goes, well, why don't you come down and talk to me? Maybe you can come to work for me. If you're good at it, you can make some good money. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. So I went down and I was like, yeah, this is a way better environment than where I'm working at. Not that it was bad, but, it was more crazy, challenging environment, new thing. So I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And
was this a porn company?
Yeah, it was a distributor called Video Home Entertainment.
So a one-stop type of idea?
Yeah, it was a one-stop type of place.
Okay.
And so we would get all kinds of movies in, and then you just sell them to video stores across the country. TV stores, video stores, adult bookstores, and we sold whatever. So, and it was not just straight movies; it was gay movies, whatever was going on. If they said, hey, we got these movies to sell, and this is what you're getting paid, then we'd get on the phone and sell it.
How much did you make for a movie?
I think, we were making like $7 a movie commission or something like that, but it depended on what it was that you were selling, and then sometimes the manufacturer would come in and give you like a spiff, like, oh, if you sell my movies this week, we'll give you an extra $3 in commission or whatever.
Oh shit! So those spiffs are working the whole time.
Yeah.
All this, I was paying spiffs.
Right. So now you're getting paid $10 a movie or whatever. So. Yeah, so
wow, $10.
Yeah, but you weren't selling, you weren't always selling hundreds of movies in one order. A lot of times you were calling people up and they were buying one beta, one VHS. That was it. So they were getting it because they were spending $110 or whatever for those two, so they could rent it out to their customers.
They're $55 at that point.
Right, 52 and 55. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah.
So then you would make, what was the most you ever made in a day?
Geez, I don't remember. That was a long time ago. Probably like $100 or whatever, maybe 150. But that was a lot for back then.
The minimum wage in 1982, 1983.
Yeah.
I looked it up before. It was like $2.
Yeah. So, we were making better money than most people were, and I was always. From forever, I was always of the mindset of, I want to get a job where I can make money, but I don't feel like I'm working.
Oh, yeah?
Because if I feel like I'm working, the day's going to take forever to end. Yeah. So you always wanted to get something that, you like doing, and then you can make money at it.
Well, that's the whole key to becoming great at something.
Yeah.
I think. You got to love what you do.
Sure.
And I loved fucking the girls. So I was a good porno star, or a great porno star, whatever.
Right. Well, a lot of us like fucking the girls. It's just that we can't all do it in movies or didn't want to. It takes a certain mentality to be able to say, okay, I'm actually going to be on camera. So I've done almost everything in the industry you can do, except for I've never had sex on camera. I've never been talent. Yeah. That's the only thing that I didn't do. So I always kind of in my mind, I described what people like me do is civilians working for the military. You know what I mean? So there's the military, which is you guys. There's regular civilians, which is your average person. And then there's people like us who are in the business, but we don't have sex in the movies. So I always said, well, I'm like a civilian who works for the military.
Did you ever feel envious or say, fuck, I want to fuck some of those girls? 'Cause there's some pretty girls that came around. And maybe you did fuck some of them, right? I don't know.
Well, sure, you always want, if you're not, as long as you're alive,
Yeah.
you always want to bang the girls.
Yeah.
But no, I was never like that. Was I jealous of TTBoy or whoever else was doing it? No, I was never jealous of wanting to do that, but sure, you look at a hot chick and you're like, yeah, I'd like to bang her. But, then there's other times where you're on a set and you're seeing the guys working and it's like, okay, so this girl is not like, the prettiest girl in the world, or maybe she doesn't have the best hygiene or whatever. And it's like, this dude is working today. He's earning his money.
Wow.
It's not like every single time you walked on a set, there was just some super hot chick waiting for you, It's not like that.
Something about the camera, and the right lighting and the right makeup.
Yeah.
The girls look unbelievable, right? You say, whoa, right? And it's a little different when you're performing.
Right.
I mean, some of the girls were unbelievable that I worked with.
Sure.
The environment was just right. The time was just right.
Right.
You felt just right. Both of you felt just right together. It was just unbelievable. But sometimes it wasn't. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
It's just the way life is.
Yeah.
You can't just say, hey, I'm gonna have sex right now, 24/7 with any girl, anytime. Because anybody out there in civilian life will be like, well, I don't really like this girl. Too bad.
Right.
You got to fuck her.
Same thing with the girls. Like, I don't really like this guy. And it's like, okay, well, you could say no, but you're not going to be working today.
Yeah. But the girls had more power.
Right. The girls had more power. They would have a no list.
Yeah.
I know they still have a no list. I won't do this or I won't do that, which they have to, because they have to, protect themselves physically. But what a lot of guys and a lot of girls, and I think most of them realize it, is it's not a freaking dating service. It's not eHarmony or whatever. It's like you're getting paid to go have sex, to do this little scenario with this person or these people.
Yeah.
And it takes a certain mentality to do it. And then back in the day when you were doing it, it was harder on the guys because there was no Viagra, there was no performance-enhancing drugs for the dudes to be able to do, regardless of who they were working with or how they felt that day. You guys actually had to go in there and do it. And a lot of times it was 2 or 3 scenes a day.
So I would do 4 scenes a lot because I love everything,
Right.
Love the girls, love the money. But if your mind isn't correct,
Right.
People don't know. Any given day, your girlfriend could give you a hard time, or maybe a family member, or anything that could distract you.
Right.
What do you think your sex performance is going to be like when that happens? And then, maybe you know this, but you probably don't really. But sometimes when you're an actor, a top actor, you know what I mean? Like, say, me or Peter North or, Rocco or who, in those days, right?
Sure.
There's a lot of B-level or even A- guys and C guys that are upset, jealous, that you got a lot of work and that you can do the job so well.
Right.
Right? Not everybody, there's a lot, especially the lower guys. And if they get a chance on a set to stare you down or kind of walk by when you're doing the scene, you know what I mean?
Right.
They'll try it, right? And that'll try to, delete or, make your performance lesser. Hey, did you ever know that?
No, I didn't know that.
It's a psychologist award.
Right.
And then when you're a performer and you're working side by side with a girl, think about this. If your fucking dick is not hard and the other guy's dick is hard, who are you?
Yeah, you mean if it's two guys and one girl?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are you? You're the weaker man.
Right.
You're the weaker man, and that'll get in your head.
Yeah,
right?
well, see, only porn performers like yourself would know this. You know, as regular civilians, when we have sex, it's either for reproductive purposes or for just sheer pleasure, not for the viewing pleasure of whoever can watch the video we're making. That's a whole different trip.
Yeah, your head, it goes, so if your head, my point is, if your head isn't really there, you're in trouble.
Right.
You're done.
And like I said, you guys didn't have Viagra or all this other stuff that they have now. Like, oh, I'm not really into it. Oh, they just go take a pill or whatever, and then
I heard,
yeah, or do whatever they have to do, whatever chemical enhancers they can get their hands on that'll help them get it into perform, and that's it.
I mean, it seems like it makes it easier for the production company or the person shooting the camera, because you don't have to worry about a soft dick.
Right.
But I wonder about the passion, because I don't really watch the movies. But is the passion there? Some people say no.
I don't know, because I don't watch them either. Not really.
But, because if you're natural, you can't really lie. If your dick is hard or soft, really.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You lie a little bit, but not that much. But the passion, the love between two people, making it work together, is not a lie so much when you're natural performing.
Yeah, you'd have to talk to some of the younger, newer girls and guys and ask them how it is nowadays to really get an idea.
But would they know the difference?
No, they wouldn't know the difference, but you, as somebody who used to do it, talking to them as someone who does it now, would be able to get an idea of how different it is from when it was back then.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Mark Davis, shed light on it a little bit, because he was working until 13 or 14. But anyways, let's go back to you. You're important. So you got this job. You're working for a distributor, a
Right.
one-stop distributor, right?
That's what it was, yeah.
And so you're making pretty good money, $100 or $150, whatever, right? So it could be $500, $600, $700 a week.
Yeah.
You could get an apartment and go play in your band. How the band? It was hard to make money in a band, huh?
Yeah, no, you weren't making any money with the band. I mean, basically, you're living in LA. It wasn't a cover band. You're doing original music. So by then, you're doing a pay-to-play thing. So you play at whatever, the Whiskey, or there was a place called FM Station or Viper Room, any of those clubs, and you had to go out and sell the tickets yourself. Otherwise, you would lose money on the gig. So you had to not only play the gig, but you had to be your own promoter.
Oh, really? I never knew that. Wow,
Yeah.
That's crazy. So how much would you
It's
have
still
to pay?
the same way as it is nowadays.
Wow, how much you have to pay?
It depends on what night you were playing and all that stuff and who else was on the bill. But let's say maybe a couple of $100 or whatever. And so you had to sell a couple of $100 worth of tickets.
Each ticket's only $1, or?
Yeah, so, the tickets aren't that expensive. They're, $5 or whatever,
They want to get them in there to get the alcohol, right?
Right, exactly. So you would get whatever tickets were you sold, and then the club would get the bar sales. So, yeah.
That's it, yeah.
Which they were happy about that.
So this leads me to my next question. Is it those guys that made it, right? Let's say the people that made it.
Sure.
Are they unbelievable? Because in your time, I'm guessing that you had, because I liked rock and roll, I would listen,
Sure.
Similar idea, Rat. Rat's kind of like a little heavy metal, kind of like in 1983, 84, right?
Right.
Were they that good to
Right.
make it, or they just had one song that was great?
It's a whole different trip for every single band. There's no formula. There's no if you do this, this, and this, now all of a sudden you're good. It just depends on what type of act you have at the time, what type of music are you doing, and are people listening to that type of music on a large scale? Is that the big music of the time? So in other words, let's say you have a swing band today, right? A big band swing thing. You could be great and have the most phenomenal musicians, but you would have been a lot better off if you were around in the 30s and 40s, because that's what people were listening to back then. So that's why it's it's different with every era. So there's a lot of luck involved. There's a lot of stuff involved to being a successful music artist. A lot. It's not just as simple as, oh, I'm the best guitar player, so therefore I'm going to be big time. It's just like, what type of music were you doing? How good were the songs? Did you get the right breaks at the right time? You know, were you doing the right music at the right time, and so on and so forth? Okay,
well, I'm just curious. This is kind of a little bit away from the adult business, but I'm curious. So maybe some other people are, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't know, right?
Yeah.
So I would wonder, is there any bands out there in that point in time when you're playing, you know, competitive bands that because you're competing too. This is a competitive form.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? This is just like anything out there. When you're trying to be number one, you got to fight.
Sure.
Is there any bands out there, this is my curiosity, that you thought were so well balanced and they were all great, you know, from the drummers, the singer, the guitar players, and the writing the music, that you knew that they were so good that they had to make it or they were going to make it? Did you ever see anybody like that?
Nah, I don't think you can predict that. It's just, it's not really, you know, you have to be a competent musician. You can't be someone who doesn't know how to play. But at the same time, it was all about the songs and all about the act. And then, are you getting the right breaks at the right time? There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, you know, and making the sacrifices that it takes to be able to do that on the right level. A lot of people can't handle it, you know.
They can't handle the torture, or?
Well, I don't mean the torture like, you know, you're not making a lot of money. If you get the right situation going, maybe you're on the road with a band for a long time. It's like a traveling carnival. And a lot of people like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be on the road with a traveling circus forever. I want to get married. I want to have a stable life. I want to have a paycheck I can depend on and all that stuff. So, you know, there's all those different factors that goes into it.
Almost like a buccaneer. Right? Just out there on the seas or something, right? Trying to...
Well, that's why I say it, like a traveling circus, right?
Yeah, yes. Seems like could be rough, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's not for everybody, yeah. So.
What bands did you think were really good in those days?
Well, the type of music that I used to like to listen to a lot, I still like listening to them, are the, like, Aerosmith.
Early days, I like the early days. Huh?
Yeah.
Drinking and rolling all night long!
Yeah, you know, back in the mid '80s, you had Aerosmith and Bon Jovi, and by that time, the Led Zeppelins of the world, they were, you know, their drummer had died, so they weren't really doing anything. But all of those type of bands in that genre.
These guys are close to that genre, but I thought they were out a little bit, but they're kind of close. AC/DC.
Yeah, AC/DC, the same thing. They were huge. You know, Van Halen, all those bands. Metallica was way more heavy metal, but they were super successful in their genre of music that they did.
That was a little bit later, though, right?
No, that was right around the mid '80s, early '80s. Yeah.
Metallica was the early '80s.
Yeah, yeah. They started playing like at the Troubadour, and they were selling little cassettes and stuff, and that's how they got started.
You saw them in concert?
Yeah, I think I saw them once in the early days, you know, and then Def Leppard, those type of bands were around back then.
I loved all those guys.
Yeah.
They were great. They sounded great.
Right. And then as the 80s moved on, then you had Guns N' Roses and Poison and other bands that were really big and popular at the time. And Ozzy Osbourne was great from the late 60s all the way till he's probably still playing now.
Unbelievable. Diary of a Madman.
Right.
I love it. Yeah, he was great. But yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that information. You know that. It always seems like it's hard because only a few people make it. But
yeah, it is.
It's a little bit of luck. Huh?
Yeah, the percentages are against you.
Yeah, you got to pay to play, and it's really hardcore, huh?
Yeah.
That's the way it is. I guess you got to. You got to sacrifice your soul.
Right.
I don't really think you can be a great performer either. You know, in porno, unless you sacrifice everything you got.
Right.
to go. You know what I mean? You're going to sacrifice relationships. You're going to sacrifice your mental health, possibly if your mind is not strong enough. You know what I mean?
Right.
To deal with it. You know what I mean? Woman or male, you're still humans. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But anyways.
Yeah, I mean, for performers, it's pretty tough to have a relationship, as you probably know way better than me.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm probably a lot different than the average guy because I'm different. Like I said, I grew up working in the mines.
Right.
You know, at 6 years old, and a lot of crazy stuff. Mother dead about 4. All kinds of crazy shit, right? So I'm a little bit different than the average guy.
Yeah.
But if you're an average guy that comes in the business and your mind is not weathered and worn already, it might break. It might break like a...
It's not for everybody.
But anyways, I was the perfect candidate, you know what I mean?
You were ready.
Yeah, I was just like, hallelujah, thank you. You don't even know how excited I was to be part of this world. You know?
Yeah. And there's a lot of newer girls and guys that are just as excited now as you were back then.
Really?
Yeah, they'll say, oh, this is for me. I found my calling.
Yeah.
Yeah. They still say it.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I was really, really excited. I like to see that.
Yeah, no, they do. It's a lot of what happens is you got the older people that are burned out. They go, it's a bunch of bullshit, you know, but they forget that to people, the younger people, it's all new and it's all exciting.
Well, yeah, but let's go back. I'm going to defend that on my side a little bit, right?
All right.
Not an argument, but it's a little defense, right?
Right.
It was so hard to get the movies, and it was so underground, right? So it was so much more mysterious, right? The mystique was...
It seemed like you were doing something wrong.
So you seemed like you're doing something wrong, but it seemed like almost impossible to get in it.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to guess that the excitement to get into the underground porno, which was still almost illegal, right?
Right.
And not hardly visible to the outside world, was really exciting. You know, because you're like in a whole another realm. You know what I mean? Now that porn is so visible and everywhere.
Yeah, it's more accepted. It's not as big of a deal.
It's not as mysterious.
Yeah, no.
It's exciting. And then when they label it, they also label it, it's going away from us, but they label it sex workers. To me, that's a smack in the face to the porn artists, right? They're artists who work and try to make beautiful sex scenes and, you know, beautiful everything.
Right.
You're not a sex worker, man. You're an artist. You know, if you're really into the porn, you know what I mean?
Right.
Anyway, so, but yeah, I mean, it was so exciting for me. So, and you gave me jobs. Your company gave me jobs. So I'm going to thank you right now. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I mean, I as I recall, you were always a really good performer, and you know, I think we had a lot of success with the movies. I mean, I was not really on set because it was my brother who was actually producing and directing the videos, and I was mainly doing, like we talked about earlier, taking care of sales and distribution and all that stuff.
So I mean, you guys got a great, you know, prelude into the business. I mean, that to me, that's the smart, intelligent next step, is to do what you're going to tell me you did, I guess. Right?
We were working for other people, right? And what happened was we were working for this one company, and this guy and his wife came in, and they had a porn movie that they wanted to be distributed. So the people we were working for, the guys we were working for, agreed to distribute their movie. Then at one point in time, this guy said to us, why are you guys doing this? I mean, you guys know everybody, you sell everything. How come you don't have your own company? And we were like, well, you know, and all of a sudden we were like, yeah, how come we don't have our own company? Why don't we just do this on our own? And so ever since then, it was like, I never worked for anybody again. I've always been working on my own. But back then, you were always thinking in terms of working for somebody else. At least we were. And then we all of a sudden realized, yeah, you know what, we do know everybody. We could just start distributing on our own. And so that's what we did. And then eventually we came up with having our own company to make our own movies and distribute them.
So you first, before you started your company, then you just started selling on your own?
Yeah, well, we decided to do our own company, and it was called Moonlight Entertainment.
So you did, yeah, I remember that one for sure. So you did not have a one-stop. You just went straight to opening your company?
Right. Well, we would sell a few stuff, because we knew enough. We had enough accounts of video stores where we could make a few dollars off of selling other people's products. So it was like, okay, well, why not? So at first we were, but then after we were just trying to concentrate on making our own stuff and selling our own stuff. But still, even back then, it was like, well, we're just doing this because it's a great way to make a living while we're still trying to be successful with the band.
So it wasn't full focus on the company?
Not like it should have been. Not like other people that were doing it back in the day, that started out at the same time we did, that some of them became hugely successful. Others of them fell by the wayside for whatever the reason is, but we sort of like were in the middle. We didn't fall by the wayside, but we didn't go on to make tens of millions of dollars doing it.
What year did you make this transition?
1986 is when we started our own company.
So 4 years you sold for other people?
Right.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So Steve Hirsch,
from Vivid Video.
From Vivid.
Right.
He said he started in 1983.
Right around the same time as we did.
And did you see his company? Did it explode quickly, or did it take time for him to build?
It took him time. I mean, I didn't see it as exploding, but Steve and guys like us, but Steve was, he wasn't trying to be a musician or trying to do anything else. He was just focused on making a success out of his own company. And he used to work for other people back then. Then he decided to start his own company, and he called it Vivid Video.
He worked for Sydney. You know Sydney?
From Cal Vista Video. Yeah, I knew him back then. I mean, I used to sell him movies or buy movies from him or whatever. We knew each other back then as like, hey, how you doing, man? That sort of thing. And then he started Vivid, and then he started to develop his own niche. And I remember at the time, the old guys of the day were like, what is this young guy doing? What does he think he's doing? What he's going to come in and be some boy wonder or something? And,
really?
yeah. So they weren't all like, oh, hey, you're Mr. Wonderful. Glad to have you. But he had an idea, and he had a way of doing things, and he became hugely successful, as we both know.
Such a nice guy, too.
Yeah. He's always been a really good guy.
Always, yeah. So nice. There's not everybody's nice.
No. Right? Yeah, but that's the same with any industry. Like, right. Everybody thinks that, you're in the porn industry, so it's a bunch of sleazebags, and it's no different than any other industry. Matter of fact, I had Dave Navarro from Jane's Addiction one time tell me he thought that the people he met in the adult industry were way nicer than the sleazebags he knew in the music industry. That's what he told me. So, and there's a guy that's been hugely successful in the music industry.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Yeah.
And he did some porn movies or just hosted them or something, right?
I think he did. I used him in the early 2000s or middle 2000s to host the red carpet at the AVN Awards for me.
Yeah. I want to know. We got to bring that. I want to know all the AVN stuff later, but yeah, because you're the person who hired him, huh? Hired some of the people. So you see, we got really a gem here. A diamond of information. Gold mine. We're trying to get it rich. Right here in the mine. Anyways.
TTBoy in the mine.
So that's interesting. So how did you get the capital to start your company?
Well, what we heard was there was this director by the name of Scotty Fox, and there was a photographer, a longtime photographer in the industry named Ron Vogel. And at the same time that we decided to start our own company, we had heard or saw an article in one of the trade magazines that those two guys were starting their own company, and we knew them, especially Ron Vogel. So we got together with them and said, hey, so you guys shoot the pictures, you guys make the movies and all that stuff. We can distribute them and sell them and market them and do all that stuff. We should all talk about maybe forming a company together. So that's how Moonlight started.
Wow, so it was a partnership.
It was a partnership between me, my brother, Ron Vogel, and Scotty Fox.
Ron Vogel was part of it? Wow.
Yeah, he was part of it, yeah.
That is a mystery. I always remember seeing Scotty Fox.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
The main...
Well, if you were on a Moonlight set, Ron Vogel was always there shooting stills.
Wow, that was crazy, see?
Right,
Really?
so Ron Vogel was the still photographer, yeah.
Was it an even partnership?
Yeah.
Percentage-wise?
Yeah, it was an even partnership.
Quarter?
Yeah.
25%?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Pieces to the puzzle, yeah.
Right, exactly.
Or a piece of pizza, right.
Yeah, and then after a few years, you know, they for whatever reason, they both decided, you know, for different reasons, each one of them, Scotty Fox decided, well, you know, I don't know if it's the best thing for me to have my own company. And then the same thing with Ron Vogel. So then it became just me and my brother wound up owning Moonlight. And we still worked with them, but we owned the company. And, you know, we would still not exclusively work with them, but, you know, we'd still work with them, you know, for shooting movies or shooting stills or whatever. And then my brother decided, well, I think I'm just going to start directing and shooting the stuff myself. And then he came up with the idea of, instead of doing just like back then, it was mainly scripted movies. We have a script, we're doing movies and feature movies, and it's going to be, and then we're going to have sex in it, right? I mean, that's how it was. A lot of them back in those days. Yeah. So
I was there.
Right, you were there. So then he said, well, I want to do, there was a TV show at the time called Current Affair with Maury Povich on TV. So my brother came up with this idea, we should do a line called Radical Affairs, you know, and it'll sort of be almost like a news program type thing, and with sex scenes in it. So we'll do interviews like what you were talking about. We'll do interviews with the talent.
1992 or 93.
Right. And then we'll do the sex scenes, and we'll try to get together two people that really want to work with each other, instead of doing it the old way, like, you know, hey, this is the movie, this is the part, he's playing the good guy, you're playing the bad girl, and, you know, you guys got to fuck whether you like it or not, whether you're attracted to each other or not. So we were trying to go the opposite and say, hey, let's get two people together, you know. So we would most of the time we'd ask the girl, hey, you know, we'd find the girl that was the box cover that we thought was super hot, and then we would say, who do you want to work with? Maybe somebody you have not worked with. Who'd you like to work with? And if they said, oh, TTBoy, I you know, then we'd say, okay. So then we'd call you and say, hey, we got this girl, you know, and it seemed to work pretty good, because a lot of time we would call you or Randy Spears or Randy West or all those guys back in the day and say, hey, we got this brand new chick. She's super hot and she wants to work with you. And you guys are like, yeah, wow, really? Okay, I'm there.
Yeah.
So that's how that line started. So we started doing our own thing. But before then, what had happened was, you know, if we want to stay in the chronological order.
I want to know, yeah.
So in like 1987, 86, 87, 85, 86, 87, AVN magazine had come into being in 1983. That's when they had their first issue. 83, and it was called Adult Video News. That's where the AVN stands for, Adult Video News.
Adult Video News.
Right. A lot of people, you know, nowadays think it means Adult Video Network or whatever like that, but it stands for Adult Video News. Mm-hmm. And it was started not by us, but by someone else at the time that did it as a trade magazine for the video stores. So the video stores would be like, well, they don't know anything about porn, but they know people are asking them for porn movies, so they need to know, okay, what do I buy? You know, what do I buy to have in my store so that people will rent these movies from me? So that's what AVN was started as. And then then the guy that owned the company at the time decided to have his own awards, because there was an adult movie awards, but it wasn't really anything. It was it was not a very good situation, and it was dying out. And so no one was doing it. And he thought, well, I should do my own awards. So,
and this is, from what I know, Paul Fishbein?
Right, Paul Fishbein, right.
He's the founder of AVN.
Yes, right. So he decided to, the first few years, he just announced the winners in the magazine. Like, the winner for Best Feature is Debbie Does Dallas, or whatever it was at the time. I think it was something else later than that. I don't recall the movies. That's how he did it. Well, then he decided, I'm going to have a show, and I'm going to do it in Las Vegas during the trade show, which at the time, the adult industry was part of the Consumer Electronics Show. The adult industry had their booths at the Consumer Electronics Show. And
which I understand was the Sahara.
Yeah, it was at the Sahara.
Always?
Not always, no, because at first it was at the Las Vegas Hilton. That's where it was at, that's where it started out at, and it was all just part of everything. And then all of a sudden, the people that were selling electronic parts like connectors, or they were selling video machines, or whatever they were doing for consumer electronics back then, they said, we don't want to be around all these porn people. And then so then CES decided, okay, we're going to put all the porn people in their own section, which everybody was fine with, because you would say, okay, you have to go over to this hotel if you want car audio, car stereos. That's where those people are. If you want home stereo systems, you got to go over here. If you want televisions, you go over here. So then it was for the adult industry, you go over to the Sahara, which was the place where they wound up at the time.
What year was that it switched over?
God, I don't know. I think it was probably 1985, somewhere around there. Steve Hirsch might know that better than me. Yeah. He would probably know. But so that's what it was. So it was over there. So then
one quick question,
Yeah.
So you were there, right? You were there in these early days.
Yeah.
Right? You're gonna tell me how the band was, but I'm curious. How big was the electronic show compared to today?
It was the biggest show in the world back then, and it's the biggest show in the world today, the Consumer Electronics Show. It still is.
I mean, is it bigger? I would think it's got to be way bigger today than it was in those days, but tell me.
Yeah, it is way bigger today, but the adult industry isn't part of it anymore, of the Consumer Electronics Show. It is way bigger, but there's more electronics. Yeah. Back in those days, the cell phones were this big, and they were attached to a car. Now, and back then, like, fax machines were new. Right now, you couldn't find a fax machine in a museum, So, and Apple was just starting out, like, in 1983, 84 with a tiny little, screen, and they were trying to make something that was a home computer that everybody could have. So there was a lot of technology things, but it was still the biggest show in the world back then, and it still is today, as far as I know. I think it's the biggest trade show there is.
The advancement with all that technology is, if you could just put them side by side, right?
Right.
From 1983, whatever, say, to 2020, because it just happened.
Sure.
What would it be like walking? You would know because you were there, but I would like to see it, because the technology has advanced so much. It's crazy, right?
Oh yeah,
it's not even. It's crazy. This is what internet. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at your cell phone or my cell phone, right? You take a look at this. This has more and better advanced processing power than the computers that were on the Apollo spacecraft that the guys depended on to go to the moon and come back safely to Earth. This thing is way far and above their computers.
That's wild, right?
Yeah.
68, Apollo went, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, whatever, 69, 70, 71, whatever. I mean.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I heard stories. I wasn't a computer tech back then or now.
No.
But I heard that this cell phone, at one point in time, can process more than a whole room full of computers could back in those days.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Technology changes constantly, and things get smaller and better and faster and cheaper. Yeah. So getting back to it, so then in the mid to late 80s, AVN said, okay, we're going to do an award show when we have everybody in Las Vegas, and we're going to do our awards show event. So I was like, okay, we're having the AVN Awards. So me and my brother are like, oh, okay, great. We'll go to the AVN Awards. We were just going to have fun, because back then anything went with us. We were just like, this will be a great time, right? So it was in the Aladdin Hotel, which is now Planet Hollywood, but it was called the Aladdin Hotel back then.
I remember.
And so he had a small meeting room, and it only had a couple of hundred people from the adult industry in there, and it was a wine and cheese reception. And it was Paul Fishbein and his partner at the time just standing on stage announcing nominees and saying who won, right? So it was like everybody would go. You know, you talk about John Leslie, you talk about Russ Hampshire, Steve Hirsch was there. They were all there. Ron Jeremy, back in the day, still around. So everybody would go to this event. So when it got done, it was like everybody was happy to go, but you were bored to tears. You were like, God, man, that lasted forever. It's 3 fucking hours. Wow. Man, that was brutal, you know? So we're like, okay, well, whatever. So then the next year came along.
But you were there and you said it's brutal? That's what you were saying?
Yeah, it was brutal and boring.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. It was very slow moving, and it was boring.
This is maybe 84, because first...
No, this was about 86, 87.
Okay.
Right. So, because before that, he just announced it in the magazine. So it was everybody was excited to go, but like I said, it was a wine and cheese reception. There was no music. There was one spotlight. It was in these little meeting rooms, and then you did this award show and gave away these trophies, and that was the end of that. So then the next year, he decided to do it again, and it was the same thing. Everybody went, but it was really slow moving. It was boring. There was no entertainment. It was nothing. And so we're like, wow, man, that was tough.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Since you're a rock and roll guy, you and your brother both had long hair.
Yeah.
It's the style. It was cool, right?
Yeah.
I had long hair.
Right, exactly.
Not as long as your guy, but I had it down here.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, sure. We were all doing
it. Was cool, right?
Right.
I liked it. Anyways, that's the girls liked it, right?
Well, yeah, but you're a lot younger back then. Like even nowadays, the young guys that have long hair, they look cool, you know. But I mean, once you get older, you have long hair, it doesn't look that good.
No, it looks kind of weird.
Yeah.
But the girls, God, for me, porno's all about the girls,
Yeah.
But were you like, hey, these girls are cool? Because you were selling their movies.
Yeah.
And you're seeing them now. That's why you're there,
Sure.
Are you hanging out with them? You talking to them? Which ones were cool? Which ones did you hang out with?
Geez, I don't know. I mean, we hung out with some of them. I'm trying to think out who. Back in those days, I knew Christy Canyon was dating this guy that owned the company that we worked for in the early days.
She brought him up.
Yeah, so got to know her pretty well. She was she was only 18. She was brand new back then.
Was she nice?
Yeah, she was always nice. She's still nice to this day.
She was on my show, and I say to myself still, how the hell does she stay so sweet?
I don't know. I think she's just naturally that type of person. That's
a real girl.
Yeah.
I think we're losing those model types.
Well, it depends. It's all the individual person. I think if you're just a miserable person, if you're a natural asshole, then you're struggling to put this facade out to everybody that you're really a nice guy or a nice girl, right? Mm-hmm. You can't keep that up forever. Eventually, you have to go into who you really are, and everybody gets to know that you're a fucking asshole.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're just naturally a nice person, it doesn't take anything you're not trying to keep it up. That's just you.
Well, I don't see these people around so much anymore. I used to think that the girls were sweeter in kind of our time. You're probably a few years older than me, I'm guessing.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think it's the same for any time. Like, there's a lot of really, really nice girls and nice guys around now. And, it's the same. It just changes. I think every generation for everything thinks the last generation, their generation had the best music, the nicest people, everybody was cool. Those were the days,
You're probably right.
That's what everybody thinks, those were the days. I mean, when people were listening to Jimi Hendrix music, their parents were going, this is a garbage, horse shit, fuck, turn that shit off. I want to hear Benny Goodman and Frank Sinatra and Bing Crosby, right? Nowadays, guys that were listening to Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin and all that stuff back then, they hear rap music and they go, turn that shit off, that's garbage. It just goes on and on forever like that. That's just the way it is.
All right. To a certain extent, I'm with you, but on a certain extent, I listen to a lot of music today. I have a hard time listening to it.
They sound just like the old guys. That's what they said back then. That's what they say every generation.
Okay, but
back in the 30s, when they were listening to Benny Goodman, their parents were going, this is garbage, this is horrible shit, and they wanted to go back to the 1910s. It's just the way life is.
But I heard some people in this generation say that the older music was better.
Yeah, but there always is people that,
It's the same, you think?
Yeah, I think it's the same.
All right, well, here's a story that you might find interesting.
Okay.
I read Jesse James' book. I'm all about the Old West.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Striking it rich, mining, Wild West. Porno was like the Wild West. Anyways, Jesse James and his crew, went into Northfield, Minnesota. You ever hear about that story?
No.
So they were, they were Civil War veterans, guerrillas on the South, right? Fighting for the South under Quantrill. Anyways, his crew or gang most of them were from the Civil War. So they were in the war and the battles together. So they had each other's back, and bullets are flying, all that shit. Who can you trust?
Right.
Right? Who's got the balls? Who's got the heart? Who's got the spirit? All of it, right? So his people were tight with him. Pretty much, And anyways, they go into Northfield, Minnesota, and they get shot up. They get set up by the Pinkertons. So Frank and Jesse are the only people that make it out of there alive or unlocked up. They made it out free. The young girls, all the other gangs get caught up. So now they've got their gang for all these years is now over. They still like making money, probably still like hanging out, right? So they go to the new generation, and they go, these guys are not like our guys.
That's what I'm
saying. They're weak. They just want to get a name.
That's been going on for thousands of years, It's not like, you could get historical records from the days of the Romans and the guys were saying that, they're weak nowadays, not like we used to be. That's just how it always is, and it goes on forever. But people just aren't cognizant enough to realize that or to accept it.
That's probably it, accepting it, right?
Right.
Maybe, but it's a little weird these days to me. Things are a little weird.
But not to them.
Not to them, but it's a little different. But anyways, that's not this show. We're moving on. Right. So back to you're saying that.
So I was saying about AVN and how it started. So then after the second year we went, it was, a fun event to go to, but it was boring as hell. So, so then it was like, now we come to the third year. Now everybody's at the Tropicana, not at the Sahara anymore. or the Aladdin.
And it was kind of a happening place in those days.
It was the happening place.
I remember.
And so even though the trade show was at the Sahara, everybody stayed at the Tropicana.
And the pool parties were cool at Tropicana.
Pool parties that in the summertime, in the winter, it's freezing ass cold.
But the mentality, right, for Tropicana.
Right, the mentality, everybody was having a great time. So it's like, okay, now it's the AVN Awards, and my brother's like, okay, so yeah, the AVN Awards is tonight, we're going. And I'm like, oh, no way. I'm not going to that fucking thing. I can't sit there for 3 hours and be bored to fight. I'm not going, no way. And him being the older brother, he goes, listen, we're in this fucking business and we're going to the AVN Awards tonight. I'm going and you're coming with me. Yeah. I'm like, okay, all right, fine, I'll fucking go, right? So
you guys are tight, huh?
Yeah, tight, but he's the older brother, right? So he's telling me, we're gonna fucking go, right? So I'm like, all right, okay. So we go to the show.
So I'm guessing with that attitude that you weren't banging any of the girls. Because there's no reason to go. Because there's no banging the girls. So you're not really interested.
Well, you're not going to be banging them at the award show. You know what I mean?
After parties.
Yeah, but you're still hanging out after parties. And I didn't want to sit there for 3 hours, and listen to this. So he says, okay, we're going. So I'm like, okay, we're going. So we walk in the place and the show starts. And after about 10 minutes, he's not looking. And I'm like, I'm getting out of here. So I left.
Whoa.
And I went and sat out at the bar that was just outside the showroom, and I sat down talking to a guy that you probably remember named Frank Koretsky.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask you about him.
Oh, Pleasure Productions, right? So back then, he was just starting out, and I used to sell him videos, so me and him just sat there at the bar having drinks, shooting the shit.
IBD.
Right, until it was over with, right? And then once it was over with, everybody started coming out of the room, and my brother came out, and I said, so how was it? He knew that I bolted, right? So I said, how was it? He goes, it was brutal. It was fucking brutal. He goes, but you know what? He goes, I got this idea. He said, we can turn this into a show. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, we could turn this into a show, an entertainment show. The band could play, and we could make it entertaining. And I was like, okay, yeah, sounds good to me. I'll do it. What the hell? Because at that point in time, any excuse for the band to have another gig, I was all for, and any excuse to not have to go to another boring wine and cheese reception, I was for that as well. So it's like, okay, yeah, I'm all for it. Let's do it. You got to talk to Fishbein. We're talking Paul Fishbein. Remember you talked about him?
Yeah, but this is the first time you met him right here?
No, we already knew him for a few years.
Okay.
So he owned the company, and it was his show.
Because you started your company in '86.
Right. So we had already known him for a few years because he had started his company, and then the other company we were working for, the one I told you where Christie Canyon first came up, was called Paradise Visuals. So...
and that's the company that Christie Canyon was going out with that guy?
Yeah, exactly.
She brought his name, said he was a really good guy.
Yeah, Mike Paulson was the guy's name. Yeah, so those guys, we were working for them, and Paul Fishbein was not only did he own AVN at the time, but he was still only a few years old, so he was trying to sell all the advertising himself. So he was calling every company, and he got a hold of my brother when we were working at Paradise Visuals. And at that time, my brother decided he wasn't really too keen on doing sales and stuff. So he created a position for himself. He called it media relations, And so he was talking to Paul Fishbein, and Paul was trying to get him to buy advertising in his magazine for Paradise Visuals. And Mike Paulson and his partner at the time, a guy by the name of Greg Schell, they were like, we don't need to do that, But then as AVN came up, my brother's like, I think this guy's got something. I think this magazine he's got going, I think it's going to be something. I think he's got a great idea. We should advertise with him. So after a while, they said, okay, yeah, tell him we'll take out an ad.
For Mike.
For Paradise Visuals.
Right. For Mike's company. Mike Paulson, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And Greg Schell's, right?
Right, yeah. So Mike said, okay, we'll buy an ad. So that's how, we got to know Paul at the time is because, you know, my brother started dealing with him, buying ads each month for Paradise Visuals.
Do you remember how much the ad cost? A page? One page, right?
I don't. It would only be a guess.
A few $100 probably?
Yeah, I mean, maybe around $700 or $800, but I really don't know.
Okay.
I can't remember. But so then that's how we had gotten to know him. So we're sort of going backwards a little bit, but then advancing the story to...
I want to, let's go back. So we know where we are right now.
Okay.
Let's go back to your company, because I want to finish your company out.
Okay.
Kind of, then go back here. So right now, we're at the spot, you know, we'll mentally make a note of this, saying
Right.
we're at the spot where you make a deal with Paul Fishbein to give him ads, you know, a page of...
where my brother did on behalf of Paradise Visuals.
Exactly.
Right.
So remember that. But I'm interested, because, you know, I know Scotty Fox.
Right.
Did Ron Vogel pass? Or is he still alive?
I don't know. Last I heard, he was living with his son up in Seattle, Washington, or somewhere in that area in the Northwest.
I'm guessing Ron Vogel by now is 90.
He's got to be somewhere in that area. So if he's still alive, I don't know.
Okay. So Scotty Fox, he was a cool guy. I liked him.
Yeah.
He's still alive, I'm sure.
I would hope. I'm not sure, really.
But they sold out their percentage to you?
Yeah.
Oh, so how?
Yeah, there wasn't really, you know, we weren't really making money at the time. You know, we only had a few titles out. So it was they weren't partners for years and years. It was after a couple of years where they just decided, we don't need to be a part of this. You know, I think it was probably because they thought they could make more money if they just kept freelancing on their own for other companies.
So how much money was your first production? How much did it cost? You guys all put in 25%, or they said their time is the camera, or how did that work?
Yeah. It was, the deal at the time was like, you guys do the productions and we'll maintain the office and do the sales and marketing and all that stuff, and you guys will do the productions, give us the master. We'll get it duplicated and distributed and marketed and all that. That was the deal that we had between ourselves at the time.
So they paid for the cast and the shooting.
Right.
They just delivered the master to you, and you sold it and split it?
Yeah. I mean, that's what we would do. Yeah. But it wasn't, you know, so simple, because, you know, you had to, you had to maintain the office, and you had to pay for all your expenses first before you said, okay, what do we have?
You have the duplication, you have editing too, probably, right?
Well, they took care of all that.
So you have duplication, printing, and the box cover?
Yeah, advertising, printing the box covers, printing flyers at the time, because back then it was snail mail. You know, you call up somebody and they go, send me a flyer. So then you're actually putting a flyer in an envelope and mailing it to somebody, and then they're in Virginia somewhere, and so you got to wait a week till the mail gets there, and then call them back the next week and say, okay, did you get that flyer? Oh yeah, looks good. Okay, and then hopefully you'd make the sale at that point.
You guys had slicks. Remember the slicks?
Yeah, that's what they were. Yeah,
they were cool. I love those slicks. People don't know they're like what, 8x10s or what they were?
Yeah, they were 8x10s.
All shiny.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what everybody would send around so they could make sales.
It's like to the people, a slick is 8x11, 8x10, whatever it is.
A one sheet.
One sheet just showing the box cover, the title, promoting the title.
Right, exactly, promoting the title. And then maybe on the back there's a synopsis or whatever and other information on the back.
Or maybe even the box cover, hardcore on the back, maybe?
Well, you pretty much got to the point where you wanted to make sure that your one sheet was the representative of what the box cover was going to be. Mm-hmm. So that's what you needed to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because sometimes I remember showing too much hardcore was not going on in those days.
No.
Right.
Just
pretty kind of on the front.
Well, yeah, but also too in the early days before my time or before your time, there would be this box cover or whatever of this beautiful girl, and she wasn't in the movie.
Really?
Yeah. So people would go, "Oh, wow," and then it was like, "Yeah, but the girl's not in the movie." So it's like,
what the fuck, really? Really?
Yeah, exactly. So then guys would get the, this is, I think, before the days of like VHS and all that, there would be pictures of these pretty girls that weren't in the movie.
Oh.
Yeah, so you're like,
well, you get pissed off.
yeah, exactly.
That would piss me off.
Right, you get pissed off because you're like, I thought there was this hot-looking chick in the movie. Now I got this, pack mule or whatever.
Yeah. Oh God, really? That would be too.
Yeah, whatever you're thinking. It's like I'd sign up for this, but by then it's too late. You got screwed.
You have to pay for it.
Right.
That's the way porno was. Hard to get a hold of. It was.
Yeah.
Kind of. So, you sell your first title, right? Do you remember the name of it?
It was called Reckless Passion.
Reckless Passion.
Yeah.
How? Because I'm a salesman too.
Right.
People don't know. I did my own sales.
Right.
For my company. How many pieces did you get out the door? That's the big.
Jeez, I don't remember. I think a couple of thousand, but I don't really remember.
Really?
So that was a long time ago.
Because you're a salesman. I mean, so you know all the people.
Right.
So you only got a couple thousand on those days?
I think, a few thousand, something like that, because by the time we started, then it was really competitive. There was a lot of people doing it, and so then it quickly turned into, instead of a seller's market, it turned into a buyer's market. So it became pretty competitive and pretty hard to maintain high levels of sales,
So the 87 was already competitive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Wow.
Yeah.
So, what was the price structure?
God, I'm going to have to, it wasn't $52 anymore. I think it was something like around $35 or $40, something like that.
In 1987?
Yeah, something to that effect. Like I said, someone like Steve Hirsch would know this better than me.
Right. No, I asked him. I'm pretty sure, but that was 2 months ago.
Yeah.
In the show, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was nice enough to come down. Thank you for coming down, of course. So maybe 3 times $20-something. So how much was the budget? You don't really know because they paid for it.
Yeah, the budgets back in those days were somewhere around 25, 30 grand, something like that.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Why were they charging so much?
It was just the cost of doing it. You didn't have these tiny little HD cameras that anybody could buy anywhere, Yeah. You had to use professional cameras shooting on 1-inch or 3/4-inch tape. It wasn't like when it became in the 90s and all of a sudden you had a Canon L1 where you were shooting on high 8mm small tape and it was an affordable thing. So that's why it cost so much because of what you had to pay, for the crews and the location and the gear and the editing and everything.
Yeah, and I remember those big ass cameras,
Yeah.
and a monitor. Everybody's watching the monitor,
Right.
and the
Sure.
people on the sets. It was bigger sets, and it seemed more professional than most of the productions probably today.
Right.
You know what I mean? But anyway, so that's interesting. So did it work out? How many titles? I mean, did it work out well for you? How many
Yeah,
titles per
we had
month?
like 120 titles or something like that. And, we were making a living, but we didn't make millions of dollars in profit. And who really knows what the reason is why, you know what I mean? Maybe somebody could say, well, because you guys were still trying to do your rock star trip, and then other people might say, well, maybe the movies you were selling weren't what everybody was buying at the time. Maybe they weren't hardcore enough. So it's probably a combination of a lot of different things. But like I say, but we did make a living, and the company went for like 14 years till about 2000. And then we just weren't making any money. So we didn't go bankrupt. We just stopped doing it. We didn't have a bunch of debt or whatever, or owe a bunch of people money. We just stopped because we weren't making enough money doing it.
So you were released like 1 or 2 a month, something like that?
Yeah, back then it was just 1 a month when you first started. And then if you had 2 a month, that was a lot. But then people kept upping the ante, 2 a month, 3 a month, 1 a week. 2 a week. It just kept going and going.
Oh yeah, it became real competitive. I used to put out 20 movies a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moonlight wasn't around by that time.
Believe it or not, I started production in '96, very quietly. You know what I mean? I was always a quiet person.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, maybe not so much on the sets, but I'm always quiet when I'm doing business. You know what I mean?
Right.
But anyway, so that's interesting. Yeah. So you didn't make a lot of money. You made a living, and you could still do your dream, which is doing rock and roll.
Yeah, which was doing the music business. You know, which is what we still wanted to do. And then, like I say, then all of a sudden, my brother has this idea to turn this AVN awards ceremony into a show.
Well, hold on one second before we go back there. I still want to know more information about the company.
Okay.
So I want to add, this is like a personal question, but this is a personal question that maybe could answer questions to people that are moving forward with dreams.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, because a dream is a big deal. And I say follow your dreams, but everybody has different, ideas.
Right.
But you followed your dream, which was rock and roll.
Which
right?
was, yeah.
Rock and roll, that's really the dream.
Right.
Do you think, or do you reflect back and wish that you would have put more energy on your company so you had more money? Because that's really when you do business, you got to sacrifice everything, you know what I mean?
Right.
Do you wish you would put more sacrifice on your business, or are you happy that you went for your dream?
No, I don't look at it like that because nothing is guaranteed. You can't say, well, you know what? If we would have just said, hey, forget this rock and roll thing. Let's not do this anymore. Let's just, give that up and concentrate 100% on doing Moonlight. Maybe we would have made millions of dollars, but maybe not. There's no guarantee. So, and like I was saying earlier, you just have to be what you are. And so neither of us were born into the adult business like some people back in those days might have been, like, oh, my dad used to sell videos or he used to run films back in the 60s to the theaters in New York or whatever. We didn't come from that. We didn't come from that at all. We just fell into the business as a way to support ourselves while we were trying to do music. So that's how we always looked at it. It's like, wow, this is a great day gig to have while we're still trying to do the band. So I don't look at it like that. To me, I feel like you have to just keep on moving forward. You can't sit there and say, I should have done this or I should have done that. Maybe you should have, but maybe even if you did, you still wouldn't have done it. That doesn't mean, that everybody that ever tried, because there were a lot of guys back then that's all that they did and were concerned with was their companies and making it a success, and they never were a success financially.
Yeah. What do you think on those guys? Any reason?
No, I don't think there is one reason. Okay. There's a lot of different reasons, it's just, I don't think you can't point to one thing and say, well, this dude should have done this and then he would have been a billionaire. That doesn't,
Sometimes you can't see what's on the other side of the road, to make it perfect.
Right.
That's what we're saying right now.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to see. Anybody could say, oh yeah, well, this is what you should have done, but you weren't on that side of the road at that point in time. So
right.
You really don't fucking know.
Right. If you want to use Steve Hirsch and Vivid Video as an example, there's a lot of guys that started companies when he did. You can't even remember what their names are or their companies are. So it's not like, well, they started out when he did, so automatically they were as successful as he was, right? So you have examples like that. Or the older guys at the time that couldn't get over the hump and switch over and realize that those days they used to have back in New York or whenever they were doing it, those days are gone, and now it's time to move on. They couldn't get past this hump, so a young guy like Steve was at the time comes along, and he's got new young ideas, and he becomes hugely successful. Yeah. But it didn't happen overnight. That didn't seem like it to me. I don't know if that's what he told you.
No, he's such a humble guy. He would never speak like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I didn't get that from him.
Yeah.
But we know his company was pretty big, you know?
Right, yeah.
And,
but I'm saying when he first started, it wasn't like, 6 months later he was a millionaire. It didn't happen like that.
But he did say in the interview that his first movie sold very, very well.
Right.
With Ginger Lynn,
What? Yeah, exactly.
Whatever, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah. So, no, yeah, he was successful and he did a great job, like I say, but there was a lot of people that were around at that time that weren't successful like him. For all the different, all the stuff he did to make it a success, it worked. But other people didn't.
Yeah, he's an anomaly in the business.
Yeah, I mean, some people, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
It's weird, right? It's just a weird dynamic of the universe that we don't. I wish I knew the mystery, right?
Right.
Because you never know, you know what I mean? But I'll say that I got in the business. I was successful as an actor, and I was successful as a distributor and a producer.
Right.
And the company owner. I don't know. It worked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Elliot Siegel, right, helped get me in the business. But he was a company that couldn't change with the times. The times get very tricky.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And you don't know unless you're like a new generation sometimes, kind of, a little bit, right?
Right, yeah.
It's what you're kind of saying, what you're just kind of saying. So, did you know Elliot? He was a one-stop too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know him really well, but I do remember him, and I did know him at the time. Yeah.
He's a character. I just bring him up because he was,
Right. I don't even know if he's where he is now.
Oh, he's still alive, yeah.
Okay.
He's in Miami, but anyways, ironically, you know what I mean?
Right.
He was friends with my uncle.
Right.
When they were in New York way back.
Right. Way before me and you.
Yeah, way back. No, how old are you?
Right now?
Yeah.
Well, if I told you that, I'd have to.
Kill me, no. No, I thought you're close to my age, but a couple years older. I'm 51, almost 52.
Yeah.
So you're close
Yeah.
a little bit?
Older than you. Let's put it like that.
Okay. No problem. So the collecting money, So you weren't putting out a lot of product. Was it hard collecting money?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough collecting money from people. Some people would outright screw you, as you know, and then other people would just take forever to pay you. And some people would just take forever to pay you just because they could. It was a buyer's market, and they could have paid you, but they said, I'll get to him later.
What was usually 60 or 90 days they paid you, or sometimes they never paid you?
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, you'd like to keep it at 30 days, but, it just depends on who you were dealing with.
And you did most of the sales, right?
Yeah, I did most of the sales.
When I talked to Steve, he had said that, before he could sell GVAs, and his father was friendly with Ruben.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But before he could sell the GVAs, because they had a lot of power, right?
Sure.
He had to sit before their committee and explain and try and get them to buy. Can you imagine that? And his father knew Ruben and he knew Ruben, but GVA still wanted to screen him, and that was strange. Did you find that happen to you?
No, I think by the time we started our company, it was a little bit looser, but it was still hard to get in with the bigger guys, when you were a new guy. It was hard to get in to get them to take you seriously and buy your product.
Because the GVAs had a lot of power.
Yeah. They had like 8 or 9 places all around the country, and they owned a bunch of bookstores, so they could buy 50 or 100 pieces of one title when you came out with it. So they had a lot of power, yeah.
They can make you or break you, kind of, a little bit.
Yeah.
Because if they had 8 or 9 places, I remember GVA West, Michigan, GVA Michigan, GVA New Cleveland, New England.
Right. Baltimore.
I think Baltimore kind of was gone by the time I came around. I think.
Might have been, yeah.
But there's, I remember like 5 or 6 of them.
Sure.
And then, how many stores do you think they had total?
I have no
all
idea.
combined, because you were there in '83. That's when they were powerful.
Yeah, I think it was like hundreds or whatever. But when you're working for somebody else, they already have the big accounts. Those are like house accounts when you're working for somebody else. So they're the ones that are selling the 100 videos at a time to an account. You're calling the small stores trying to sell 1 or 2 videos. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I got you. So yeah, they just take a normal minimum on their company, Pleasure, whatever the company. What was it called again? The company you worked for? Pleasure?
Oh, Paradise Visuals.
Paradise Visuals. I remember that company.
Right.
Because I was a porn fan. You know,
Right.
and I remember some of the company, Essex, Caballero, you know, Swedish Erotica.
Right. Well, we had Ginger Lynn and Tracy Lords on a couple of box covers and stuff. That's before anybody knew that Tracy Lords was underage. Nobody knew it at the time.
She looked beautiful, huh?
Yeah, exactly. She was.
Yeah. Anyways, that was not a good situation.
No.
Yeah, I'm very good friends with Jim, you know, South, you know what I mean?
Jim South.
World Modeling.
Is he still around?
Yeah, he's still alive,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And he represented Tracy Lords.
Right.
Unknowingly.
Right.
Unknowingly.
Well, back then, he was the only guy.
Right.
He was the only agent.
Well, he had Reb, but pretty much he was the guy.
Right. Yeah, Reb came after him, but it was just him alone for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, that wasn't good for him.
Yeah,
You know,
no shit. Wasn't good for a lot of people.
Yeah, you were there in the middle of all that. I mean, you saw what was going on when it happened,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
What did it seem like? Hell?
We were all like, when we heard about it, we were like, holy shit, Tracy Lords wasn't 18. We couldn't believe it. You know, we couldn't believe that she was underage for every movie she ever did except one.
Tracy, I love you.
Right. That was a movie I think she did afterwards because the company Caballero at the time offered her a bunch of money to finally do her first legal movie. But yeah, we were shocked that we didn't know that she was underage.
And you were selling her movies. Calling up, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
for sure.
crazy.
Exactly.
I'm not guilty, you're saying. No, I didn't know.
No. I mean, yeah. So nobody went to. Well, I don't know who went to jail. I don't think anyone went to jail for it. Nobody knew. But that's one of the things that led people to start saying, okay, there's got to be age verification. You got to have some sort of a screening where you're making a reasonable attempt to find out how old the people are so you don't get underage people coming in the business.
Yeah. And you know, the crazy thing is that a lot of those people would use their sister's IDs.
Right.
And their friends' IDs. You know,
But nowadays, the fake IDs are like, you can get them made all over the place.
yeah, right? So, I mean, it's just like, it's so hard. I used to have machines, you know, the ultraviolet machines and card readers.
Right.
That can read their IDs, make sure that they're legitimate. You know,
Right.
it would help.
Yeah.
And then I would say, bring your yearbook, right? Bring everything because
Right.
I don't trust you.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking hell, believe me. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, because there's a lot of people still, I'm sure nowadays, that, you know, because you know how it is when you're 16, 17 years old, you don't give a fuck about anything, you know? It's like if you wanted to get a hold of a bottle of liquor or some beer, you're not going to sit there and say to your buddy, "Oh, we can't do this. We're underage. We're not supposed to drink." Most of us, like me or you, are just going to say, "Let's figure out a way to get you know, a 6-pack of beer."
I was 12. I stick a bottle of whiskey down my pants at the store and walk right out.
See what I mean? You know,
Exactly.
It's the same thing. So there's a lot of people that just think, you know, what's the big deal? They don't know that the big deal is that the people that are making the movies can go to jail if they use somebody who's underage. You know, that's
horrible.
Yeah,
Horrible. Yeah.
You can't be.
For everybody, yeah, horrible. But Tracy Lords, on the other hand, from I was watching her, she was, when I was so young, I was like, God, this girl is ridiculously hot.
Right.
And Christy Canyon sat right there in that chair and said, Tracy Lords was fucking hot.
She was.
Hot as fuck.
She was.
Did you see her?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. I know my brother was on set with her when she did like her first movie or whatever. He worked as a PA on one of the sets. But no one ever, until it was found out that she was underage, no one ever said, you know, God, I'm kind of wondering about Tracy. I don't know if she's 18 like she says she is. No one ever said that. It never occurred to anybody that she was underage.
Christy Canyon.
Ever.
Christy Canyon said
Not that I knew of.
Christy Canyon said she was so strong, right?
Right.
So you wouldn't believe she was underage because she already knew what she wanted.
Right. Exactly.
That's what she said.
I think she was just a natural-born sexual athlete. That's what, what it had to be, because I don't ever remember anyone going, boy, I'm not sure about if Tracy's 18. No one ever said that. Everybody just assumed she was, and that was it. Until one day it came out she wasn't, and we were like, wow, holy shit, are you kidding me? Tracy Lords isn't 18? It was a shock.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not good. That's all I'm gonna say. About Tracy Lords.
Right.
Peter North was on here. He said stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
Christy said she was beautiful.
She was.
Yeah. Anyways, so back to GVAs. Because I'm interested in distribution, and a lot of people might be, in this game of, it's a game of war a little bit, when you're selling pieces.
Yeah.
I found, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because the guys, when I was selling, I sold VHS and I sold DVDs, right?
Sure.
In my company.
Yeah.
And they always want to get you to make a deal, right?
Right.
Right? I put out a lot of titles per month, you know what I mean? I built myself up to, but they want you to give you a deal on older stuff, right? And I always tried to hold the price for as long as I could, and I did for a lot, you know what I mean? And then they would come back sideways, at the full price return, and you're getting jacked. And I love math. I don't like that.
Right.
Like, this does not make sense.
Right.
So I used to tag all my stuff, color coded with color tags, to know who I gave that deal to.
So if it came back from someone else,
I'd say, guess what? No.
I'm not taking it back because you didn't buy it from me.
And I want my money.
Right.
They owe me, because that's what they always did. Held you hostage. Take this huge RA back, or you don't get paid.
Right.
Right? Write it off. Fuck you.
Exactly.
That's part of it. I'm just giving that information. This is the porn puzzle, right?
Sure.
So I give this beautiful, sacred information to the people.
Sure, why not?
Because it is sacred, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's only small amount of people really know the inside workings of it.
Right.
That's it. And they would send me back tapes that I sold them 2 years, or DVDs that were 2 years old.
Wow.
Used up, abused up, and say, give me a full price return.
Right.
I would say, come on. Right? That's bullshit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But the porn stars, because this is all about porno too, the porn stars.
Right.
Right? Did you date any of them?
Not a lot, but sure, because back then, you're single and you're doing whatever you want to do, and any waitress or secretary or porn girl or stripper chick that you can get your hands on or whatever you're playing in the band, sure, but I can't say it was anybody that was a big star or anything like that.
Any girls I know?
I don't know if you would know.
Tell me.
No, I would.
Secret?
I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't.
That's cool.
Even talk about it now, but not really a lot.
All right. So let me ask you this then: the stars, that were there. Let's go in decades, right? Because we're kind of the decades, similar decades, pretty much. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So the '80s. You know what I mean? Those when I know the stars the best before I was watching were the '80s, right? So let's go down a couple girls, right?
Sure.
Ginger Lynn.
Yeah, she was a big star at the time. Yeah.
Did you meet her and talk to her?
Yeah.
She was on the show. She is so sweet too.
Yeah, she was always really nice back then as well.
Did you think she was super hot?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah? Is that your style? That look?
That was, yeah.
A little bit rocker, right?
Yeah, back then all the rock and roll chicks were the ones that you were attracted to, when you're guys like us, right?
Yeah,
even nowadays the rocker chicks look hot to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't see a lot of younger girls dressing like rocker chicks, but when they do, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, they have that hot, you're right, the porno chicks dress like rocker chicks and rocker chicks dress like porno chicks.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Hair up, lit, hot, leather or something.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, back in the late 80s, early 90s, when we were playing out in the bars, the chicks were wearing short skirts and heels and the big hair, and they were all made up, and they all looked super hot, and they were not porn girls. They were just regular girls. And that went on for a few years until the whole grunge thing came in, and then the next thing you know, it was cool to look like a slob.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's what I say about the new changes. I'm not going for those new changes. I like those girls looking hot.
Right.
And they were hot. And were they horny in the band? This is non-porno girls. The girls at the clubs, when you played, that's one of the reasons most people played. One of them.
Yeah, because you want to get the girls.
Want to get the girls.
Sure.
So how was that?
It's like anything else. It's like you were talking about before, who you have chemistry with. Sometimes, you'd meet someone and you would just hit it off and it was freaking fireworks. And other times you'd meet somebody and you would be going like, oh, fuck, why did I do that?
Why did I fuck her? Or why
Yeah. Like it was less than satisfying. Let's put it like that. You know how it is.
Oh, yeah. You never know what you're getting it's like Cracker Jacks.
No. And who knows? Maybe they walked away saying, boy, I wish I didn't fuck that guy.
Maybe, right?
They could have, right? It goes both ways, right?
So did you get a lot of girls playing band?
Yeah, when you're playing in the band, you have access to a lot more girls, So yeah, and back then you're taking on all comers. Except for there was a point in time, there were different points in time when I had a girlfriend. So it was like, you're not going to be banging all these other chicks, And then sometimes you realize that.
Okay, whatever, man.
Well, no, but that and
you're true blue, okay.
No, but I wasn't. Which is why it didn't last,
Oh, I see, yeah.
Because then once I did that, it was like I was always like banging all these other chicks, and then I was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And then once I broke up with that girl, it was like, I said to myself, I'll never do this again. If I'm ever in a relationship and I want to bang other girls, I'm going to break up right away. Yeah. Because it's too much. It's too hard to keep track of all the lies and do all that stuff. It was too much work. It's just easier to not have a girlfriend than be free to be with whoever you want.
Seems like it. Just come to your house, you have to worry about somebody banging on the door, catching you.
Right. If you have a girlfriend or you're married and you still feel like you need to bang other girls one after the other, then you shouldn't be married, or you shouldn't have a girlfriend, or vice versa if you're a girl.
Yeah, but on the other hand, you like the security of having a nice person that's not a dirtbag.
Right, but then why are you banging all these other chicks? You know what I mean?
I don't know, man, because if a hot pussy's put in front of you, you're a hot-blooded American, red-blooded man.
No, I know why you want to.
You know what I mean?
But if you have an exclusive agreement that you're not supposed to, it makes it difficult,
I bet that agreement's been a pain in the ass through the history of humans, you know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
But it was fun, huh, being in the band and getting all the action.
Yeah, exactly.
Those girls were hot, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Must have been beautiful.
Yeah, the rocker chicks, they were all super hot, and it was, you had a lot of fun, you play the gigs and then hang out in the club afterwards.
Yeah. So let's go back to the porno chicks, because I'm all about the porno chicks. You're part of the 80s. So Amber Lynn, do you know her very well? Talk to her?
I don't know her really well, but I do know her. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Was she hot?
Yeah, she was super hot back then, for sure.
She had the rocker look.
Yeah, she did. She had the rocker look. She was super hot. She was a big star back in those days for sure.
Her brother Buck Adams. You know Buck?
I did know him too. Yeah.
He was cool. I liked him.
Yeah.
He was my roommate. He came by one day and said, "Can I stay the night?" I said, "All right." He stayed for 6 months. We couldn't get him out, right? He was cool. Anyways.
Yeah.
What about Candy Evans? He's like a rocker chick, pretty. Remember her?
Yeah, I do remember her. I did not know her that well, but I do remember her, yeah.
Stacey Donovan was the beauty. You remember her?
Stacey Donovan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember these names that you're saying. Once you say them, I remember them, but I wouldn't be able to recall them all without you reminding me of who they were.
I didn't get to be part of them. But they looked, when you're watching them on camera,
right.
You're not on set, you're like,
yeah.
They look so great.
The fantasy is there.
Yeah, big fantasy. So, Angel Kelly, you remember her?
Yeah, I remember her.
She was very nice.
Yeah, she was a totally cool chick. I liked her a lot. Yeah.
She looked a little bit like a rocker. You know what I mean? A black rocker.
Yep.
She was
Yeah. She was. Yeah. She was a great girl.
What about the 90s? You know, what girls do you think in the 90s? What stars do you think were really hot?
Well, like I say, I don't remember a lot of them, but we start to move into the award show years, you know, and then that's how I sort of recall the girls. Like, you had a girl that, speaking of Vivid, was a Vivid girl named Savannah.
Yeah, Savannah.
Savannah, who wound up dating Slash from Guns N' Roses back in those days. She eventually, I think she committed suicide.
1994.
Right.
June.
Right, back in those days, where she was super hot, you know.
She was a very, on her, you know, to speak up on Savannah, I knew her. You know what I mean? I worked with her a lot of times.
Yeah.
And she was very, I liked her a lot. She's very cool. A really cool chick.
I didn't really know her, but looks-wise, she was.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a really pretty girl. And then there was, I think in the early 90s, there was a girl named Gina Fine. Remember Gina Fine?
I think she was actually from the 80s and then came back in the 90s.
Into the 90s, yeah, something like that. And
she was really nasty, horny, you know, and she was a great performer.
Right, yeah, good performer.
You thought she was pretty? Hot, you know?
Yeah, you know, kind of, you know, like she wasn't a classic beauty like Savannah was or whatever, but, you know, it just all depends on who you have chemistry with.
Yeah. Well, you know, Gina Fine just, when she came to the set to work, she was there. She was serious.
Right.
She was real serious, so, you know.
Yeah, you probably had your work cut out for you, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, she was, yeah. You want to know who you really had to work with, who you had your work cut out with? You had to have your energy perfect.
Yeah.
Because she'll kick your ass, because she's strong and a beast. Debbie Diamond.
Debbie Diamond, I remember her.
You got to be strong.
Yeah, and she wasn't a small girl either. She was like 5'10" or whatever, you know.
5'11".
5'11", yeah. She wasn't like some 5'2" little petite girl that you could just toss around, you know. I mean, she was a bigger girl. But I always thought she was really a pretty girl, and she was a great girl. I always thought she was really nice as well.
So nice.
Yeah.
And the people loved her. She was a big Viking, you know, sex goddess, right?
For sure.
Yeah, anyways. But she was very nice. But yeah. Debbie Diamond was very strong.
Right.
Just on her defense or, you know, admiration of her.
Yeah.
But yeah, who else do you think? I mean, there's a lot of good girls from that.
Well, 90s. Yeah, but when you start to get into the mid-90s, now you're getting into Jenna Jameson territory.
Yeah.
And that's where she came up because we had, don't want to jump too far ahead, but I had her in the AVN Awards. She won Best New Starlet in 1996, Jenna Jameson. And I think that started the new generation of porn stars when she came along. Now you had a new generation because before then you had, in the 80s, you had Seika and you had...
Early 80s, right? So
yeah, early 80s to mid 80s, Seika, Marilyn Chambers, you know...
Well, Chambers was from the 70s.
Right, but still in the early 80s, she was still around there. I'm trying to think
Vanessa Del Rio.
Yeah, Vanessa Del Rio. Let's see. It's hard for me to... I can picture their faces on the box cover, but I don't remember their names. You know, if I hear their names, I'll remember them. But there was one named Rhonda Jo Petty.
Yeah, I remember that.
She was really, really pretty. It's hard to remember them. You remember their faces because you sold their movies. You know, remember their faces from the box cover. So they were the stars back in those days. Jessie St. James, she was on Talk Dirty to Me, that first one on the cover of that.
Taja Ray was happening back then?
Yeah, and then there was the girl named Bambi Woods that did Debbie Does Dallas. She was the original Debbie Does Dallas, but that was the only porn movie she ever did that I knew of. I don't think she ever did one before or one since.
And then, of course, there was Linda Lovelace.
Linda Lovelace, same thing. She was in Deep Throat, and I think that was the only porn movie she ever did. She might have done one later. The girl from, I'm trying to think of Devil and Miss Jones.
Georgina Spelvin?
Georgina Spelvin, yeah.
Right, that Lois, wasn't Lois Ayres, or she was a new wave?
She was more in the 90s, and then Hypatia Lee. Yeah, they were in the early 90s too, yeah.
Late 80s. Lois Ayres was late 80s.
Portia Lynn, remember Portia Lynn?
Yeah.
She was she was a porn star of late 80s, early 90s.
I work with her.
Yeah. There was another notch on TTBoy's bed. You ran out of room for notches. You know?
I got a lot. I didn't get all the girls I wanted to get, on those 80s.
Right.
I didn't get very many at all. Just to let everybody know.
They might have been retired by the time you came around.
Pretty much. I'll let you know who I got. Porcelain, who I wanted to get, right?
Right.
I really wanted to get Angel Kelly, but I didn't get her. She was one of the reasons I got her.
She was gone already by the time you got in.
Yeah, pretty much. But she came back for one movie, but she didn't work with me. I was so young, but whatever. She liked white guys. She's going out with Nathan Sullivan, Ron Sullivan's son.
Right.
Henry Pichard.
Yeah.
Right. But I got May Lynn.
May Lynn, that's right, the Asian girl. I remember her.
She was sexy as hell. There was another Asian girl, Kimmy G or Kimmy Tai or Kimmy something. She was an 80s girl. I got to work with her. And I think that's all the girls that I wanted to work with that I got to work with. You know what I mean? I didn't get to work with any of the other girls, really. I don't think. Maybe that one girl that always played the MILF, dark-haired girl. She was popular.
Don't remember.
Now, if I say her name, you remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. She was sexy. But yeah, that's all I got to work with in those days. I got to work with a couple girls that that were stars, but they weren't the girls I said, oh, you know what I mean?
Right.
The girl Danielle, there was a girl named Danielle. You probably remember her. She was blonde. She had a hard body. She had a super fat one. I love those fat ones. Anyways, I guess. But that's what I got to work. But yeah, let's go back to those 90s.
Right.
Right? So the 90s, Jenna takes over.
Yeah, in about 1996, and all of a sudden she becomes a huge star. And it was back when Howard Stern was still going super strong on regular FM radio. And then it was remember we were talking about before the timing, with different stuff. And she was in the right place at the right time. And he was having porn stars on his show all the time. And she got on the show. And the next thing you know, he's shooting his own movie. So he gets her to play a part in his movie Private Parts, and then she gets bigger from there, and she just exponentially accelerates into being a huge star at the time, the late 90s and the early 2000s.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was really friendly with Jenna.
Yeah.
Her husband was a very good friend of mine, Jay Gardena.
Jay, right.
So, I mean, I know the whole dynamic inside there.
That was before Tito Ortiz.
Way before Tito.
Right.
Jay said, what do you think of Jenna? I said, well, she's got some really good stuff.
Right.
And then he went
yeah, and she was beautiful.
Yeah, she was beautiful.
Super beautiful and super nice. Yeah. She was always great.
She had something special, I think, and I want to get your input on this.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't talk to that much, maybe you did, but if you did, because she was in AVN.
Yeah.
She had a little gift, I believe. First, she's intelligent, you know what I mean?
Right.
Hey, but she has a gift, whether she uses it on purpose or it's just natural, I don't know.
Right.
But she has a gift that will make you think that she maybe loves you, right?
You mean when you were working with her?
When you're talking to her, she's kind of very quietly seducing.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't spoken to her in probably 10, 12 years, but I always remember she was really, she was always great back then. She was always pretty and really did a great job. And anything I ever asked her to do for the award show,
She speaks so well too, right?
Yeah.
She knows what she's talking about. She can use the dialogue, and she can converse, combat, do whatever she wants to do with dialogue. We know that.
Right.
People need to know that's another gift she had.
Right.
But on the fan side, she might make a fan think that she loves them when she meets them, you know, she had magic, right?
Right.
So that's what I'm talking about. She had some special gifts where you would think that she loved you. You know, and maybe she loved everybody, but she didn't want to have sex with everybody.
Well, yeah.
But, you know, but she had something a little special, I thought, compared to the majority. Do you think?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the reasons why she became so huge, because she was able to put that across through the camera. You know, besides just the fact that she was really beautiful, really pretty, as I recall, did great sex scenes and all that. And in terms of porn, she was pretty good with the acting as well.
Yeah.
So she was really good on that. So, you know, it's those intangibles. Like, I don't think you can teach that to somebody, to how to put it across that vibe. Like you were saying, like you're the only one in the world, you know, when really you aren't,
Yeah.
you know, or,
Exactly.
or, you know, I'm never going to have sex with you, but, you know, I'll make you think that I am.
Yeah, and I'm thinking the fans, when she met him, she probably made him feel love like they need. They need love, you know, the people need love.
Right, yeah.
But that's what I saw. You know, and I'll let you know, let the people know that when you did have sex with Jenna, felt
Because you
good.
did.
Yeah, numerous times. You know,
Well,
never
there you
off
go.
camera, never off camera, but only on camera.
Right.
But she had really, really good stuff, just to let you know.
Right.
And I'm the kind of
Well,
guy.
thanks for that.
Yeah. I'm the kind of guy that bases a lot of girls on their goods.
Right.
I don't know, do you ever think that way? Did you ever base, you know, the sex on the goods? Or was it the look? Was it everything? Because a lot of people don't think like I think, but some people do. How do you think about sex? Just curious, quick curiosity.
Yeah, I think it's for, I guess everybody's different, you know, but for me, it's the same thing. It's like, first of all, you got to have a physical attraction to somebody. Anybody that tells you that they don't, I don't believe it, you know.
I mean the pussy. Good pussy.
Well, yeah, you know, it's just everyone feels different, you know, and you know, sometimes the best sex isn't always the super prettiest girl that you were with. Sometimes the girl that's, you know, if you put their pictures side by side, the one that most people would think is super hot isn't anywhere near as good in bed as the other one that people would think, not that she's horrible looking, but that she's just sort of average. You know, your better chemistry and your better sex might be with that person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
But you find it strange that not all girls are created equal, and some for pussy can be so unbelievably good at a level so far you can barely touch, and then some are so far down in quality, like, what the fuck? Did you ever notice that?
You mean you think all pussy should be equal?
Yeah, you might think that.
No. But to some guys it is, you know, like some guys will tell you, I don't give a shit, I'll fuck anything, it doesn't matter to me. You know, some guys are like that, you know, but I think for most people, it's who you wind up having chemistry with. What is it about them that trips your trigger?
But are you all about the good pussy, the high level, or does that mean that much to you?
You mean, no, I think it means something to everybody, you know? Yeah, of course it does.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is you could be with a girl that's super gorgeous and then you have sex and maybe it's not that great.
I've thrown a lot of those girls to the side.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Which is why I would give younger people advice. Like guys, I would say, if you meet a girl you're super attracted to and you get something going, you have to have sex fairly quickly. Doesn't have to be the same night you meet her, like a one-night stand, but it can't go on for months without having sex, because you know, like, it's like, oh, wow, I really like this person. I think within the first week or two, you got to have sex, because if it turns out to not be good, then you know that if you don't have chemistry, then it's not for you. You don't want to go, wow, man, you know, I've been dating this chick for 3 months and now we finally had sex and I really like her, but the sex was awful.
Yeah. Waste of time.
Yeah, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of everybody's time.
Everybody's time.
Right.
Not just the girls.
Right.
But it's the guys too.
The girls, the guys, it's a waste of everybody's time. Like I said, that doesn't mean, okay, you know, if you don't bang them the first night, then forget about it. But it should happen relatively quickly. That doesn't mean you should be stupid and not have protection or protect yourself against whatever pregnancy or sexually transmitted diseases. Everybody should do that all the time. But, you know, you don't want to find yourself in a situation where, oh, wow, this is awful. Now how do I get out of it? You know?
Run.
Right?
Right.
No, because you don't really, or most people like me or you, I mean, you don't really want to hurt somebody, you know?
Right,
just
right.
like you don't want to be hurt either, you know?
Right. You don't want to, you have emotional connection, now you got to break it.
Yeah. You don't want to really, you know, unless you're just a person that doesn't give a fuck about people and you don't give a shit about anyone, and then you just plow through life.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. So let's go back to Jenna. Jenna does stuff that we've never seen before. And between me and you may not have seen this. Maybe you have, probably not. Because I was at a lot of parties with her and Jay, right? I would see the girls. We never saw this, I don't think, in our time. Would run up to her. Would do anything to talk to her, to meet her, to hang out with her. Do you ever remember girls in those days? Oh, this is the porno star girl I love and admire and inspire to be.
No.
Never, right?
No. Yeah, because she was an actual porn star. She was a star. You know, like
Superstar.
Right. And like nowadays, I don't think you really have porn stars. You have porn performers, mainly.
But like, what about Christy Candy and Ginger Lynn? They were porn
stars as well.
But the girls didn't inspire to be them. I don't think, right?
Yeah, but they were of a way earlier time.
Yeah.
You know, then once Jenna came along, it was like, it's like I think a lot of these girls thought, oh, wow, Jenna made it so that it's okay to be a porn star and not be considered just a piece of rotten shit and trash.
That's my point.
Right? You know, that all, you know, but that was a different era. It was more accepted. Mm-hmm. You know, by that time we're talking about the early 80s. It's like, you watch porn movies? Whoa, what kind of a fucking pervert are you? Once it got to be the 90s, it was like, yeah, people watch porn movies. Nobody was afraid of it. And now it's like, it's no big deal.
Right.
Like to people, like they're like, oh, you watch porn movies, huh? So what?
Yeah, I still believe that she was way ahead of her time, because still the stigma was still there, because I was the porno star and I saw the girls and the stigma that they got sometimes going home and the pain and torture of the next door neighbor saying, oh, you're a whore, you know what I mean?
Right.
So Jenna was ahead of her time, transcending this whole new wave of idea thinking.
Right.
You know what I mean? Of thinking, right? So I saw it, man. I was at some parties when one girl snuck into her limo. Right? Because she had two limos. We're at the club in Phoenix, you know. And we're going home, right? To their house, right? And the girl in Jenna's like, what the fuck are you doing at my house? She had snuck into the limo without anybody knowing to the other limo. And she was pretty, right?
Right.
It's just, you know, it was like, you know, it was like almost like a stalker, right? But anyway.
Probably was.
Yeah, this was a pretty ass 18, 19-year-old girl. Right. But I never seen that, and we never heard of that.
No.
Before Jenna. This was 2000, probably 2002 or something. You know, at her height, she really hit the height globally. I think around those years, 3 or 4 or 2 or 3 or 5, somewhere right there. I think, right?
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah.
You know?
I think probably, yeah. Because remember, what Howard Stern's movie was 96
was it?
Or 97. Yeah, it was somewhere around there, Private Parts.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and she was in there, and then she got bigger and bigger, and then, you know, when you said the name Jenna Jameson, everybody knew who you were talking about. Because remember back then when Howard was on FM radio, it was like 20 or 25 million people a day listening to his show.
Wow.
That was a hell of a lot.
He really had it going on.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So,
he did.
I mean, he still has a huge audience now, but it's different.
Yeah.
You know, than it was back then.
Yeah, it's more, I don't know what you would call it, more like, just a smaller idea, right? More family oriented. Not really. 25 million is not a family.
No.
But the mentality is still not such a global mentality, right?
Right.
Because now he might hit the whole world. I don't know, right?
Yeah, I think back then he was the only guy that would get on the radio and say, I watch porn movies. I love watching porn. You know, back then guys wouldn't admit that, you know, or say anything like that. But he did.
Professionals, right?
Yeah, and his whole thing wasn't that. Now, he wasn't like, oh, let's get this porn star in here and tell everybody what a piece of shit she is. He got him in there and said, wow, you're gorgeous. You're great.
Right,
you're
right.
beautiful.
Right. Like Jerry Springer used to get him on there and kind of make him look bad.
Right.
Right. So there's a couple more girls in the 90s. Tara Patrick.
Yeah, Tara Patrick came up in the later 90s.
Late 90s.
Yeah, and early 2000s. And she was another super gorgeous girl that became huge. It was almost like Jenna Jameson started this like, hey, here's a porn star. And then Tara Patrick also became a porn star.
Beautiful, right?
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. And she was really young. I don't know how old she was when she started, 18 or 19 or whatever. I don't know if she was older.
I would think, because I did one of her first scenes in 99, I would think she was about 24, 25.
Oh, she was?
That's what I would. She was very close to my age.
She might have
She was
been.
very close to my age when she started. Let's find out. So I think she's a few years younger than me. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I would think that she was 30. 99, 2000, yeah, she
I
could have
always
been
thought
30
she was
years
like
old.
20 years old.
Let me see. I thought she was one of the prettiest girls ever to come around.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. She was 8 years younger than me. So she was probably about, in 99, yeah, she was 23, 24.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever, pretty close.
Yeah. So she became really big.
She's pretty. Brianna Banks, I thought was another girl, was pretty hot.
Right, but she never became as well known or as big as a porn star as Jenna or Tara.
No, you're right. Never.
She didn't. I think the reason why she was big at the time was because she was a Vivid girl.
Yeah, probably.
So that was it.
The only other girl I think that was really pretty well known, it seemed for me, you know what I mean, was Janine Lindemeyer.
Yeah, well, Janine was the early 90s. Janine Lindemulder and Julia Ann.
The early 90s?
Yeah, they were, because I had Janine host the award show, the AVN Awards, in, I think it was 93 or 94.
Really?
Before she had all the tattoos, she was brand new.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
she was pretty new. So she was 1993 or something, 94 for her as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. But she didn't work with guys, so she was just working with girls for Vivid.
Was she?
Yeah, she didn't work with guys until way later, till the thousands. Maybe 4 or 5 or something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Anyways, all right, so we know there's some great girls, but let's go back and where we left off. You know what I mean? So you shut your company down in 2000.
Right.
And that's that. You had a
Yeah.
nice run. You know, things changed, and that was that. And so
Yeah.
now you're still with the AVN, right? But let's go back to pretty much 85, 6, when your brother buys the ad from Paul.
Yeah, that was earlier on, but
Earlier?
when we had our own company, Moonlight was only about 3 years old or whatever, and that's when he comes up with the idea, we can turn the AVN Awards into a show, and it'll be big. So I'm like, yeah, okay, fuck, I'll do it. So we go to Paul Fishbein and we go, why don't you let us turn this into a show? The band will play, there'll be music, it'll be a show instead of just this wine and cheese reception. And he goes, no, I don't want to do that. He goes, no, I'm not interested. It won't work. No, you're crazy. We told him, you're crazy. Nah, forget it. I'm like, okay. He said, forget it. So that was the end of that. So then later.
That's 87?
Yeah, probably January 87.
Okay.
And then now there used to be another show that would happen in the summertime called the VSDA show, the Video Software Dealers Association. And it was all of the mainstream companies as well as the adult companies that would go to this convention in Vegas, and it was all about software. There was some computer software stuff, but it was mainly about the home video divisions of all the major studios, like Paramount Home Video, or Disney had Buena Vista, or 20th Century Fox had their home video division, and then all the adult companies. So Paul Fishbein at the time lived in Philadelphia. He wasn't living out here. That's where he's originally from. And AVN operated out of Philadelphia. So when we saw him 6 months later, his partner at the time said, "Hey guys, I think I got Paul talked into letting you guys make this into a show, the awards into a show. I've been telling him that that's a good idea and he should let you guys do that." We're like, "Oh, wow, okay." So we talked to him and he said, "Yeah, I think you might be right. I think I'm ready to give it a try." It's like, "Okay, great." He goes, "But I don't have a lot of money and I don't want to spend a lot of money doing it." And we just told him, we said, "We'll do it for free. You don't have to pay us. We'll do it for free." And the only thing I said to him, I said, "The only thing I'm saying is you have to give us enough money to have a decent sound system, because if it sounds like shit, no one's going to be happy. So you got to at least have enough money for a decent sound and decent lighting system, right?" So
how much might that cost?
So back then, I still got a file with my receipts in it from way back then. My budget was $1,200 for the sound and lights.
Is that a pretty good price? I don't know. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was a great price. Considering now, to do the award show, it costs like $750,000 with all the gear and everything that it costs us to do the award show. It's a lot of money.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
But this $1,200 was just for your equipment.
Yeah, just so that I could hire the guys and the gear so we could put on the show, so that it would be a decent show. So then he said, okay. So then what wound up happening is we're getting ready, and it's in the fall of I think 87, I think it must have been in the fall. And we're starting to think of, okay, I said, well, give us a list of the awards you want to give out. So he gives us this list, 100 awards. I don't know, it was a lot, maybe 70 or 80. So okay, we have to do this. And so then I started thinking to myself, wow, boy, we have to put this in some kind of order. We can't just go up there and just think we're going to, play music and everything's going to be fine. So I sat down and I just, by my mind of logical deduction, I thought, okay, I have to put this on paper, and there's got to be a specific piece of music for each action that's going to take place on the stage for each award. So we made up a list, and then we did cover songs. And so it was when the people said, "And the winner is," and they would say TTBoy, we would play music while you or whoever won was walking up to the stage. And then you get up to the stage and we would stop, and then we would, then you'd make your speech, and then it was on to the next award. So that's what was, that's how it all sort of started. And then after we did the first show, it was okay, well, now we know next year we got to do this to make it better, And then after a couple of years, we did it for 2 years. Then it was well, what do we need to do? This has to be more about the talent, the stars, because nobody really gives a fuck about hearing 20-minute speeches by lawyers. That's not what this is about. And so we have to make it more about the talent. So we went to Paul Fishbein at the time, who was still hosting the show, and we said, we got an idea of how we can make the show better. He said, well, all right, well, I'm listening. first of all, you can't host the show anymore. And remember,
he's very dry.
He was like, what? It was like, he's calling his wife going, they fired me from my own show, and all that. I'm saying, look, that's not really the slot for you. You're not a comedian. You're not an entertainer. You're not talent. You should come up at a certain point in the night and give a speech or give out some special award as the dignified president of the company. But we need to get talent. We need to get the talent more involved. We need someone that's talent to host the show, and we need the talent to present the awards. And he was like, yeah, okay. So he agreed with that. So there was a guy that was male talent back in the day. His name was Rick Savage. Do you remember him?
Of course. He was a cool guy, New York guy.
Right, a New York guy. So Rick Savage was the first talent to host the AVN Awards.
I think I did a scene side by side with him. I think
You might have.
1990.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe you guys did a DP together, for all we know. But that was that. So that was how it was started. So then,
this is 1990 or 89.
I think that was probably around 89 or 90. Maybe most likely it was 90. So now we're at the. And we've been now at the Tropicana Hotel for a few years. And so now we got him so that he's going to let talent host the show. So then we have Rick Savage. And once we started doing the show after the first year and we had the music and everything, all we did was put music to the award presentation, and everybody loved it. And all of his bigger advertisers at the time said, that was great. That was much better. And, you could probably charge money for the tickets. So once he heard that, and once all of his main advertisers in the magazine said that they liked it a lot better, it was more entertaining, then he was okay with doing it. So that's how we started to build it from there. And then we started saying, okay, well, let's have a comedian perform in the show.
Let me ask you a question. At this particular time, when you put the music on, Rick Savage is hosting it, right?
Right. Yeah.
He has a good voice. He's a cool guy. What did the audience turnout look like? I mean, it was just the porn community, or was it outsiders?
No, it was just the industry, because he, meaning Paul Fishbein, who owned AVN, said this is an industry event. So he started selling tickets to the industry at that point in time. But the previous years before, we would go around the trade show during the daytime and we would say, hey, you guys coming to the award show? And a lot of the older guys would go, I'm not going to that. That's all bullshit. And we'd go, no, man, it's going to be a lot of fun. You'd have to come. And they would be like, don't you have something to do? Go play in the street or something,
The company owners.
Yeah.
Old mob guys.
They were blowing us off like, get lost, kid. And we were like, no, you got to come. This is going to be great. The talent, though, was all like, oh, yeah, they were all excited, especially the girls. So everybody was like, okay, we're going to this show. And then they liked the fact that we turned it into a show and, with the music performances, and then started to get the talent more involved.
I want to get a timeline. You first tell me in like 86 or something, there's 200, 300 people there.
Yeah.
And then by 1990, when Rick Savage is hosting, is it still the same, or is there more
No, we
people?
had about like maybe 700, 800, 900 people were there.
Because you're here from the beginning. I mean, you're like a historian on the AVN. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Because the AVN is very well known, and it's a global, the biggest award brand.
It's the biggest now. It is the absolute, without question, the biggest night that the adult entertainment industry has anywhere in the world.
Exactly.
And since we don't know if there's any life on other planets at this point, it's the biggest in the universe.
I like aliens.
It's stupendous.
But right, so you have 700 people in 1990, and it keeps growing.
Right.
Go ahead.
And then he's charging money for tickets, And so the industry is buying tables, and all that stuff. And then fans start to hear about it, and different celebrities start to show up. Back then, CNN was the only news organization around. There was no MSNBC or Fox or whatever. CNN would come and cover it. You know, they would send somebody to write an art, you know, to do a little spot on it. And then all of a sudden, some of the rock stars of the day, like Vince Neil, would show up out of nowhere, and he would be there because guys like him were dating the porn girls, you know?
I seen him on the set, Vince, you know, the Motley Crue.
Right, you know, those guys. And, you know, I'm sure other ones in the day too. So they were going. So then the fans were hearing about it, and the fans wanted to come. So they were trying to sneak in or get tickets or whatever. And finally, I said to Paul, or probably me and my brother both said it at the same time, we're like, why are we keeping them out? Like, why don't we just open it up to everybody and just sell tickets? If a fan that's not in the industry wants to come and he's ready to pay whatever it was, $150 for a ticket, sell the guy a fucking ticket and let him come to the show instead of trying to keep them out. Let them come if they're ready to pay for a ticket.
What year was that decision made?
That was like probably 1991, something like that, you know, right around there. So, you know, there was reluctance at first because it's like, no, this is just an industry function. But it's like, why? If they're ready to pay the money for a ticket, let them in.
I think that because the mindset from when Paul started was still, I'm just guessing, right? You know more than I know. But maybe the mentality was a small, family, quiet, hush-hush, illegal porn, and it finally opened up.
But it wasn't illegal, it was legal. It was all legal.
No, at this point in time.
I don't know what is, I think he was just thinking in terms of it's an industry event because AVN wasn't a fan magazine. It wasn't a newsstand magazine. It was a trade industry magazine. So he was thinking in terms of, you know, the talent and the company owners and advertisers all being there. He wasn't thinking in terms of letting fans come. But fans wanted to come. So it's like, why are we fighting this? Let's just sell them tickets. Let them come. So then finally he was like, okay. And then that's when things started to get bigger. And then what would happen is, and I think it still sort of happens today to a certain extent, you know, what we got because we put on the show was like, great show, man. We had a great time. What he was getting from half the people was pissed off because they didn't win.
Me too, I was pissed.
Right, so
I won, but I was pissed.
So, right, yeah. Well, you were always pissed back then. So,
yeah. I was always an aggressive guy. Yeah.
Right. But the point is, like, now, like, you know, you gave him the award or you gave her the award or my girl didn't win Best New Starlet and that's bullshit. She should have won. You know, all that stuff started happening. So he was getting all this negative stuff from half the people. And then he started to fear that they were going to say, I'm not advertising in your fucking magazine anymore. So there was times in those early days when I would be talking to him on the phone from here. He was in Philadelphia and go, I don't even know if we're going to do this anymore. And I'd say, what do you mean you don't know if we're going to? Are you kidding me? You're crazy. This is going to be the biggest thing ever. Years from now, this thing is going to be huge someday. You're like, oh, please stop it. You know, I got to think of my business.
What year would that be?
That would probably be 92, 91, 92. I don't even know if we're going to do it again. It was year to year because he couldn't take the fact that people were pissed off at him and that there could be a threat of him losing advertisers because this person here thought they should have won the award and they didn't.
I could see this
right.
Because I have my point of view, right? And my point of view has some merit to it, right? Obviously, because I was around so long,
right?
That I always wondered how they came up with these decisions. You know what I mean? For some of the awards, and my main concern was some of the sex scene and some of the performing best performer, right?
Right.
Because believe it or not, one year, Just I've said this before, and so I like to let you know since you're really part of it.
Right.
1994, or for the 1994, but in '95, Jonathan Morgan wins Performer of the Year. Right.
I think it was Best Actor. I don't know.
No, Best Performer.
We did have a Performer of the Year back then?
So he wins Best Performer of the Year.
Right.
This particular year, I studied for him over 10 times. And I did 300 and something movies that year. And it was King Kong. It's, I'm at the...
Right.
Just so strong, right?
Right.
And he even was on stage and said, "Oh, hey, TTI." Because, I studied for him 10 times, you know what I mean? He couldn't perform, and he got Performer of the Year. And I was just sitting there, you know what I mean? And so you say to yourself, who the fucking hell made these decisions? How were they accumulated, or how were they made?
Well, the decisions is, you have AVN, it's the trade industry magazine, and you have writers that were writing for AVN. So the writers, which still to this day, they're the voters. So they're the ones that decide who gets nominated, and then they're the ones that vote on who wins. So that's how it was all done. That's how the decisions were made. It wasn't made by one guy deciding, oh, TTBoy should not get this or whatever, or Jonathan Morgan should get it. It was voted on. And I think back then, a couple of things, I think that they were looking at, I don't think they were just looking at the sex scenes or whatever. And probably a lot of them didn't know, because I didn't know till just now that you were a stunt dick for Jonathan Morgan. I never knew this. It wasn't like, it's not like Jonathan said, he used to walk around and tell people, I'm sure glad TTBoy was on the set because I couldn't do the gig that day and he filled in for me. So I never knew this. So if I didn't know it, then maybe they didn't know it. So maybe they thought, maybe you're the reason why he got Performer of the Year. Yeah. Could have been. I don't know.
You look guilty up on stage. He said TT because I was right there. I was like, anyways, I understand that some things are complicated. I'm a businessman.
Yeah.
And not everything is as easy as it seems.
Right.
And not everybody knows really what's going on down in the trenches. You know
yeah.
what I mean? So,
well, back then, we still had Moonlight. Mm-hmm. And one year, we had the best box cover by far in the industry. It was a movie called In the Jeans, where, I kept having this idea about having a chick that had a super hot bubble butt with the ass cut out of the jeans, because there was a porn girl at the time named Britt Morgan that went to a party and she had the ass cut out of her jeans, and I thought, wow, that looks fucking hot. And so Scotty Fox, who was still directing for us at the time, said, I have this idea for this movie called In the Jeans. So instead of G-E-N-E, jeans, we spelled it J-E-A-N-S, In the Jeans, right? So we were like, yeah, let's shoot this box cover with the chick that has the jeans cut out of her ass, and you see this ass, and it'll be great, right? So my brother, who was at the shoot with Ron Vogel, I wasn't there, he comes up with this idea. He says, hey, I know what to do. I'm going to pour milk on her ass. So he takes a glass of milk while Ron's shooting it, and he pours it on her ass, and the fucking box cover looked hotter than shit. And that movie, we sold thousands of that because it's based right on the box cover, right?
Britt Morgan was...
But it wasn't Britt Morgan. That was the cover. It was a different girl.
Oh.
It was, we had Britt Morgan on other covers, but for that cover, it wasn't her. We used this other chick, whatever. I think the girl's name at the time was Jennifer Steele. So my point is, everybody thought it was the best box cover, and then a different movie won best box cover. So we were pissed off ourselves, and we're doing the award show. We're busting our ass playing in the award show for free or whatever. Maybe by that time we were getting paid a couple grand or something, but so we were pissed that we didn't win. So it goes all different ways.
Well, Peter North never won Performer of the Year. Peter North, right?
You probably should have.
You think Peter North,
Right.
you know, I mean, just alone off of what he accomplished, you know what I mean?
Right.
Well, you think, what the hell, right? I just, you know, it's a very, very strange. I guess, I mean, you guys would have.
See, like I said, we got all the praise. He took the criticism because back then and even now, I don't get a vote. I don't watch the movies. I don't write articles on the talent. I don't get to vote. You know, it's the writers and the editorial staff and the voters, they make the decisions. So I just put a show around their awards. As far as who gets nominated and who wins, I don't have anything to do with that. That's a whole nother job.
Who wants part of that? That's a dangerous.
That's a tough job because there's thousands of movies, you know. Just like my job's not, they don't need to be doing my job, and I'm happy to not be doing their job.
Yeah, that's a touchy subject. You know, for
Right.
probably so many people, like you said, they're going to say, fuck this. We're not going to be part of it. And Paul doesn't like the negative energy either, you're saying, at this point in time, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, back then he didn't like the negative energy, but he continued to do it because everybody, I think time went on and people didn't drop out advertising, and so it just kept going. So the award show just kept getting bigger and bigger every year. Yeah. So we would always try to make changes to make it bigger and better and make it more so that somebody might want to watch it. So speaking of, you were talking about Russ Hampshire from VCA, he decided that he would distribute, if we made a video of the show, he would distribute it. So that's what we did. I think the first one was 92 or 93 that he took and distributed on his label.
By the way, I was going to ask you, because I was a co-host or a little small segment, I think in 95.
We had you as like a presenter one year.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I remember that because I remember you wore a tux and we would joke about at the time going, man, TTBoy, he looks like fucking Al Pacino in that tuxedo. You know, I remember we thought it was great, but yeah, we had you in the show, and as I recall, I thought that you were surprised that we called you and asked you to be in the show because you thought, well, AVN fucking hates me, so why would they do that, you know? And I don't know what was going on with writers or voters or anything, but to me it was like, well, why wouldn't we have TTBoy in the show? Let's call him up and ask him.
Yeah. And that was great. Can I get a copy of that somehow?
I mean, it's probably, you know, you're going back to 95, maybe 96, somewhere around there. I know that we have copies of those shows, so I have to go back in the archives and find it.
Is it hard to do that?
Well, it's not hard. It just takes a lot of time. It's not like now, like if you were shooting everything, let's say between 2010 and 2020, then you probably have everything on a drive. Yeah. You just go through it and look it up. But you got to go back to 3/4 inch tapes and beta SP tapes and different stuff. You got to go back to tapes to be able to get that stuff and find it.
So it was never put out on a tape, or it was, right?
Yeah, it was, but I'm talking about the tape that we shot that night, because still to this day, the line cut of what we do that night isn't everything that goes in the TV show or that went on the DVD or VHS. Because, you know, the award shows, like back in those days, it was 2.5, 3 hours long, you know, and you had to make it so that it was under 2 hours. So you had to cut a bunch of stuff out, which we still do now, you know.
So can you do that for me, or is that way too much time?
No, I mean, I can do it, but I mean, it won't happen tomorrow. Let's put it like that.
Well, I appreciate it. So, yeah, I'll just call you.
It would just take me some time to find it.
I'll call you once a month.
You know.
But I appreciate it. But yeah, so it was fun. You know, for me, you know, just my 2 cents. To be part of AVN and to win awards, it was cool. You know what I mean? Really cool. You know, it's like, you know, to get recognized, acknowledged for your contribution. Felt wonderful.
Right.
I was proud to get any award. I won quite a bit of awards, and we know I was not a politician.
Right.
Right?
I never saw you go bringing flowers to the AVN offices trying to campaign for an award.
I wish I would have thought of it, but that just wasn't my style.
Yeah, maybe chocolate covered strawberries or something.
Yeah, because hey, politics are politics. It works, right?
Yeah, I would guess. Like I say, that I don't get a vote, and I'm very happy with that situation.
But it's a great. So this is a great journey. So we're in 90. Where are we? 93, 95,
90. Yeah.
And so now you were starting to make money in the band. Now you're hiring people. You do the hiring for different people coming in, like a comedian.
You mean for the award show and stuff?
Awards.
Yeah. Well, between me and my brother and Paul Fishbein, we were putting the whole thing together with all the talent, So Paul would hire the comedians and stuff like that. And then we started slowly, we needed to have some entertainment in the show. We were like, we got to do something with entertainment. So there was a magazine out that was the rival of AVN in the late 80s, early 90s called Hot Times Magazine. And the guy started doing his own award show in the summertime. And so myself and my brother Mark and a guy named Gene Ross, who was the editor-in-chief of AVN back at the time, we all said, let's go to the Hot Times Awards and see that show. So we went to the Hot Times Awards, and he had this...
Where was the show at?
That was at Bally's.
Vegas.
Yeah,
okay.
in Vegas, right? In the summer show. We did our show in the winter.
Is the VSDA time you're saying?
Yeah, during the VSDA time, this Hot Times magazine did their own show.
I vaguely remember it, but I think I remember.
Yeah, it was a guy named Sonny Sabetta was the guy that owned Hot Times magazine. And it was sort of the rival of AVN, or the only actual rival of AVN at the time. And he decided to do his own award show. So we went to the show, and he had this drag queen in the show named Shishi LaRue. And we watched his performance on stage, and it was fucking hilarious. We were in tears laughing so much at how funny what he did on that stage was. So we went to him and said, hey, we got this idea. We want you to perform at the AVN Awards. Wow. So at the time, Sam Kinison, a comedian of the back in the day, did this rock video where he sang Wild Thing. Remember that song? And it was this crazy, funny thing, and he had every rock star back in the day, Bon Jovi and Aerosmith, and all these different guys did cameos in this rock video that he did. And it was a funny version of that song Wild Thing that was like from the 60s or something. And it was an updated hard rock, funny as hell version. So we decided, let's have Shishi LaRue go on stage and do Wild Thing. We'll back him up with the band, and we'll have Shishi sing Wild Thing, and it'll be funny as hell, and we'll have a good time. And then my brother said, yeah, and you know what we need to do? We need to get all the girls up on the stage. That's what we should do.
That was Mark's idea.
Yeah, it was his idea. So that's what we did. We went up and performed Wild Thing, and it was funny as hell. And then we had Shishi call all the girls to get up on the stage, and they all came, and so they were all dancing at the end, and that's how that whole thing started.
They loved it.
They loved it.
They loved going up there all together.
Right, they did. And so then every year after that, we did it. We would do another song with Shishi, and then have all the girls come on stage. And then sometimes on a certain night, we would do 2 songs. And that was the entertainment for back then, because there was no budget for entertainment. And plus back then, you wouldn't be able to get, other than certain comedians we were able to get, you couldn't get any bands like Motley Crue or somebody like that to do the award show. They wouldn't do it, you know.
What year was that when Chi-Chi came?
Shishi, I want to say it was 1990, I think it was.
1990.
Yeah, when we did the first Shishi gig.
So basically, you and your brother brought this whole thing to life. I mean, Paul made it, but you brought life into it.
We made it into a show.
Do a show.
That's what it was, you know. He had the idea, like, I'm going to do an awards ceremony, and so he did it. We went to him and convinced him to let us make it into a show, you know. So, like I say, and it was really my brother that, when he came out of that one show that year, that ceremony, and he said, it was fucking brutal, but you know what? We could make this into a show, and the band could play, and it'll be great. So that's how it all started and became an actual show.
Oh, it's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah.
Your brother could see it, right?
Yeah.
But you guys really wanted this music in the show. This was your thing.
Right.
Kind of anything to do with kind of a show, right?
Right.
Is in your spirit.
Putting on shows was always what we did forever, ever since we were like little kids, you know what I mean? Always putting on some type of a show. That's what it was always about, you know, wanting to be in the entertainment industry, entertaining the masses. So it was a fun thing for us to do, but we were also at the same time building something, you know, and just trying to up the ante every year and make it better than the previous year.
So that was your focus every year, to try to make it better.
Yeah, try to make it better, and it still is. So to this day, it's like I'm always faced with, okay, how do I do the same show over and over again, but make it different and interesting?
So you still do it now?
Yeah, I still do it now. We just did it a few weeks ago in Vegas.
So
we did AVN, and we did GayVN, which is the gay version of AVN.
A whole separate one?
It's a whole separate show, just for the gay adult industry. Did both shows the same week on the same stage in Vegas.
So you produced it?
Both of them.
You're the main producer?
Yeah, I am the executive producer,
Executive?
yes. I produce both shows.
Well, you know every in and out about the whole show.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much, because you're pretty much from the beginning. So you kind of, it seems like you've kind of just helped or kind of took it over a little bit from Paul to make it work.
Right. Well, you know, as the years would go on, we would talk to him and try to convince him to let us do more and make it more entertaining, you know, and it was hard because he felt like he was trying to satisfy the advertisers and the people that advertise. So in his mind, he wanted to have like a lawyer, like, okay, here's this lawyer and he fights free speech issues for us in the courts, so he should go up on stage. Well, those guys would go up on stage and talk for 20 minutes and bore everybody to death, and no one wanted to hear it. Thank God the Free Speech Coalition came into being in the late 80s and early 90s, and they started having their own Night of the Stars event in the summer, and we said, well, let all those guys, that's what that whole organization is about, fighting for the rights of the adult industry. So let the lawyers and all the business people make their speeches at that show, and let's have the AVN Awards be just strictly entertainment. Not just for the industry, but entertainment that an average person would want to see. So if you want, an average person wants to watch this on TV or get a DVD or watch it online or whatever, why is he or she going to watch it? Because for the entertainment value. And what do we want to see? We want to see celebrities. We want to see the porn girls. That's what we want to see. We don't want to see some sales guy that works for a distributor somewhere that we don't know giving a business speech. That's not gonna, that's not why an average person wants to watch it. An average person wants to watch it because he wants to see porn stars and he wants to be entertained.
Yeah, no, those, I remember listening to those attorneys in the early days up on the
Yeah, you probably walked out and went to the bathroom or something.
I was like, what the fuck?
You probably said, I'm going back. Exactly. So it took us a while to get him out of that. And then one year, I never forget this, he called a meeting of all of the big advertisers, which at the time would be General Video, David Sturman was there, Steve Hirsch was there from Vivid, Steve Ornstein was there, yes, and all the big people, and we were all up in his office, and we were talking about, because people were complaining that the show was like 3 hours, or one year we did it was almost 4 hours long. And that's because he insisted on giving out all these awards. And I remember back in those days, I was playing in the band, and producing the show. So you can see old videos of me, you know, like I'd play and then I'd be pulling the curtain and telling the trophy girls to do this or do that. And they go back and play some more. So I'm producing, directing, stage managing, playing in the band. I'm doing that all at the same time, right?
It's hard, yeah.
Yeah, it was tough. But, you know, it was like, to me, it was like, well, this is just what I do. So anyway, we had this big meeting with all these guys. And then I remember, speaking of Steve Hirsch, he was the first one to go. He goes to Paul Fishbein, he said, yeah, just let the guys play with the band. Let's have some entertainment. Let's give out the big awards to the talent, and then let's go home. He said, we don't need this 3-hour show where you're giving out every little business award. And so once...
You sound like him there for a second. I gotta let you know. You sound like Steve for a second when you're saying.
It could have been. I mean, you know, but that's what he said, you know. And so then once he said it.
No, your accent. You sound just like him.
Well, probably because he's from Cleveland. I'm from Rochester. It's only like 300 miles difference or whatever. But the point is that when all the guys, his big advertisers and the attendees were agreeing with us, saying, yeah, you're not making us happy by giving out 100 awards and making us sit there for 4 hours.
I think I was there at that time when it was 4 hours. I remember everybody's energy started dying off, right?
Oh, yeah.
It started clearing out a little bit.
Yeah, it clears out. And then so I remember standing on stage and at about the 3.5 hour mark, looking out at the table where Paul was sitting and just seeing him like this. You know, even he was dying. And I'm thinking, this is what you wanted. You told us this is what we had to do. So we're doing it. So then once he did that, once he realized, yeah, we can't do that anymore. And then all the people like the Steve Hirsches and the Dave Sturmans and the other people that were at the meeting said, yeah, these guys are right. You know, make it a shorter show. Feature the talent, give out the big awards, and then let's all just go party afterwards. So that's when he finally started to come down off of the, you know, giving out every award and trying to satisfy everybody. And then the show became more entertaining and more palatable for just a regular person that would want to watch it.
When did you decide that? What year was that, do you think?
Well, that was an ongoing discussion from the very first year we started, but we only started to get somewhere with it by the year 2000 when he finally started to say, okay.
So it was a few years, right, that it went long?
That was a good 10 years when he would tell us, fuck no, we're giving out every single award.
I remember one year being a little bit longer. I think, I went to a lot of them.
Yeah.
Maybe 18 or 19 of them.
Yeah. And there was certain years where it was way longer than other years because we tried to cram too much stuff in there.
Yeah, no, I guess a lot of different categories that AVN come up. Did you ever come up to categories? Did you ever work on them? Or
No. Like I said, I have nothing to do with what categories they are. I don't get to decide or vote on who gets nominated, and I don't have a vote in who wins. You know, I don't know anything. It's just that they tell me these are the awards. The thing that I do is I pretty much decide what awards we're giving out on stage. But it's not like I have some sort of a secret key. It just makes sense. It makes sense to anybody. So we're going to give out Best Actress. We're going to give out Female Performer of the Year. We're going to give out Male Performer of the Year. We're going to give out Best Actor. We're going to give Best New Starlet. We got to give the Director Award out. We got to give the Movie of the Year Award out. We're going to give the Best Boy-Girl Sex Scene Award, the Best Girl-Girl Sex Scene. You know, all that stuff makes sense. And then there's 2 or 3 that you can sort of change out each year to say, well, this year we're giving out the Girl Performer of the Year, but now next year we're giving out Best Male Newcomer, but we're not giving that one out. So in other words, take one out. You still give they still win the awards, but they're just not presented on stage because there's 150 categories. You know, you can't do it. So we give out 17 of them, 16 or 17 on stage, and then the rest we roll a video of, and then that's it.
Well, I understand. I mean, even when I make questions here on my show,
yeah,
the time gets eaten up it's kind of invisible almost, it's we're just in fast forward. Let's say that. It's a better terminology.
Right.
I'm like, whoa, time is gone. You know what I mean? It's like really strange. So for sure, people walking up, making their speeches, you know, announcing it, you know, and it takes time.
Right. It does take time. So my whole thing has always been that it should never, when we're doing the show live in Vegas, it should never be any longer than what a good feature-length movie would be. So if you go to the movie theater, most movies are like a little bit under 2 hours or maybe a little bit over. So say right around the 2 hour mark, that's all really a normal person can take. Once you start getting into 3 hours, 4 hours, even with the Academy Awards or the Grammys, the biggest award shows there are with the biggest stars in the world, people get bored. They don't want to see a 4 hour show or a 3 hour show. They don't. So that's why I always have that in my mind. That's how it needs to be. Because less is more. You know,
Maybe you're right.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's the one basic rule of show business for 100 years. Always leave the audience wanting more. Don't beat them to death to where they're just glad that it's over and they can't wait to get the fuck out of there. Because that's what's happened in a lot of shows. As soon as they find out it's over, it's like, let's get out of here. Get me out of this place. And then it becomes like I was in the late 80s before there was a show, like, thank God it's over. We don't want to do that, you know?
Yeah, no. Yeah. I mean, if you watch a movie, I'm a big movie fan, you know what I mean? Regular movies.
Right.
Mainstream. And if you watch a movie that's long, right, it has no point to it.
Right.
It's like murder.
Right. Exactly.
But if you watch a movie that's great, you know, 3 hours can go by fairly fast. I watched The Irishman. It's a pretty long movie.
Right.
And I was completely into the movie, and I didn't pay attention to the time. and didn't feel any way but interested in the movie.
Yeah, but that's an anomaly.
Right.
That's the one, every once in a while there's an Irishman or whatever, or there's a Godfather movie that you can watch for 3 hours. But for the most part, going over 2 hours is a problem.
Well, you had to be a master.
And especially, especially with award shows, right?
Yeah.
Because award shows, I always tell everybody, any award show is inherently boring. Every single award show.
Yeah.
So that's the other challenge. Not only how do I do the same show over and over again and make it interesting, but how do I fight the boredom? So if this right here is 0, let's say where my hand is, you're at 0. Every show starts out at 0, whatever it is, and you have to win the audience over to get yourself up to 10, 20, 100% approval, right? Award shows start here. You're already starting out at -10. You're already starting out as a disadvantage because award shows are just boring. So you have to work just to get to 0 when you're doing an award show. And then if you can get higher than that, you did great.
Academy Awards are boring as hell.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, fucking boring.
Right.
You don't see that many pretty girls up there. You hear a lot of people talking bullshit.
Right.
But anyways, so you've been really doing this a long time. You've been part of this business for a long time, a lifetime almost. You know, a small lifetime.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, this is 83 or 82. Was that 82?
Yeah, I think when I first got the job selling videos, it was like 82.
38 years.
Yeah,
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
Long time. What is your favorite decade so far of producing the show and being part of the business?
The favorite, there was good stuff in a lot of the decades. You know, I'm not trying to get out of the answer, but you know, if I look back at how was it in the 90s and what was going on back then, there was a lot of fun things that happened. But then in the 2000s, when things switched and things got bigger, you know, there was some fun times during then. But I would say, you know, it's almost been like the last few years that are even more fun than ever. And one of the things, like I've told people before, like, and you have to be someone that's into sports, right? You know how, like, and I don't even really watch college basketball, but with college basketball, the coaches only have the players for like 1 or 2 years if they're lucky, especially if it's a good player. And that's sort of like what the position I'm in, you know, because a generation for a human being is 20 years, right? That's what's considered a generation. For a porn performer, it's 2 or 3, especially if you're a girl, and then most of them are gone. You know, the whole Jenna Jameson being around for 10 years, that doesn't happen really anymore, or all those. It's, you know, some of them are, but it's almost like you're like, that's why I call like guys that performers are like sexual athletes. Like if you're a football player and you're 29 years old, they call you grandpa. You know, you can't play a defensive line when you're 38 years old. You know what I mean? You're an old guy. But in human years, 38 years old isn't that old. You know?
Being a natural performer is a lot of stress and wear and tear.
It's being a sexual athlete.
Yeah, people wouldn't believe it, but, you know, mentally and physically, you got to be there every day, you know?
Especially for the girls, but for the guys too.
Oh, especially for the guys in the days when there was no enhancers.
Right.
Now, but, I don't think it counts.
Yeah, but mentally and physically for the girls, it's tough. I mean, it's tough. Like, if you just think about it, if we go down to all the way to the basics of biology, right? The basics of biology is the human females were not genetically constructed to get railed by monster penises 8 days a week. they weren't, you know.
So, they break.
Right. It's just, and so mentally and physically, it's really, really tough on the women to do this for an extended period of time. You know, I mean, not that it isn't for the guys, because after a while you become desensitized to sex, right?
Maybe. I mean, yeah.
Some of them?
Yeah, for sure. You know, everybody's brain may be a little different, but in general, yes.
Yeah, because I think it takes a physical wear and tear on people, and then I think especially on the girls. It's pretty tough. So
I can agree. You know, and I'm not always agreeable, but I agree. But all right, so you were in charge of hiring all these acts that's been going on, right? These performers or music artists like Cardi B, Lil Wayne. Are those your choices?
Those are the talent that we bring in are a combination of the CEO of today, who is the CEO of AVN, is a guy by the name of Tony Rios. So
when I want to lose that point, sorry, but is he the next owner from Paul?
No, not from Paul. There was another guy in between. So Paul Fishbein left, sold the company in, I think it was 2010, and he was gone by 2012. And then another guy took over the company till about 2015 or 16, I think it was. And then now Tony Rios, who is the CEO of today, has been there since 2016.
So since we're on that point, I want to lose the other idea, but why? You know, the reasons why it was sold?
I don't know why. I think it was for financial reasons every time. You know, I mean, I never owned the company, so I was never told, you know, the intricate details of why. So I couldn't really say.
Would you think, you know what I mean, that Paul Fishbein said, this is a great number, been here 30 years, you know, or plus, more than 30 years, right? 83, it's almost 30 years, right?
Yeah.
I'm good. You know, let me move on to another part of my life. Any idea?
Or it could have been that, or maybe he wasn't making enough money, maybe because attitudes and technology and things change.
Yeah.
You know, when he sold the company, iPhones had been out for 3 or 4 years. When he started the company, you couldn't even get a cell phone. You were lucky to have a cordless phone in your house. You know, so things change, and a lot of times it's not always easy to change with it. But that being said, I would only be speculating as to why did he decide it was time for him to get out, you know?
So the other guy must have felt the same way, maybe. I don't know, right?
Yeah, the other guy was a guy from, he was actually a Greek guy, super nice guy, really intelligent guy.
I met him one time in my office.
Right. His name was Theo. Really, really a great guy. And then he kept AVN going, you know, to the point where now we have a new person and who is also another really great guy. So, you know, when you're in my position, you're lucky. Like, you got all these really good guys. And then with Tony Rios, he is hands down the best business person to be in that position for sure. And he's the right person for today. So,
he's younger, more with it, or no?
Yeah, he's a younger guy. He's, but I mean, he's not like in his 20s or anything like that, you know.
30s or 40s?
You know what? I don't even know. I mean, I got to figure that he's probably no younger than late 30s and no older than early 40s. I never asked him how old he was.
Maybe it's the new generation, knows what's going on. That helps.
Yeah, I mean, he comes from the tech side of things. You know, I mean, this guy can write code on a computer. So, yeah, stuff that you and I don't even know.
Unfortunately.
Well, you can't know everything, right?
Yeah. Well, that would have helped to know that stuff.
No, but I mean, he really knows a lot. And so he's a person that has also allowed me to be able to keep the show changing and going, like, to realize that, you know, okay, if I give this guy the tools that he needs for the show, then it gets better. So, you know, and then to be able to say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get the sponsors so that we can get Lil Wayne and Cardi B and those level. Like this year we had Diplo, the EDM DJ, who's super huge.
Well, that's a big deal, right?
Yeah, all of them were.
I mean, I'm a numbers guy, you know what I mean? If you don't mind me asking.
Right.
What does something like that, these guys cost?
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't know, but it's a lot of money. But we're able to now. He's able to get sponsors and so that it allows us to be able to pay for these big acts to be at the show.
And you're saying? Did you say that earlier that the budget is $750?
Yeah, I mean, it's like somewhere between. It's probably, if you add everything up, I mean, it's probably close to $1 million that it costs to do the show nowadays.
That's just for the AVN, or is that for both of them?
Well,
AVN and AVN?
Probably AVN and GAVN together,
Yeah.
You know.
Did you have, I don't know, you know what I mean, do you have big performers at the GAVN too, or is that just primarily for AVN?
No, we do. We had a really big performer this year. It was a band called King Princess. It was actually a full-on band, and it's this young girl. She's 20 years old. She's coming up in the ranks. Her band is gaining in popularity. I know she's got one album out. Before she did our show, she was on Stephen Colbert's show a couple of months earlier. She was on Saturday Night Live about a month after that. And she's openly what she calls herself genderqueer. She's a gay girl. So to get her to be in the GAVN Awards was a perfect fit. And they had a great time and the audience loved her. And then we had a whole drag queen performance, which really went over great with the drag queens that have been on RuPaul's Drag Race and all these shows. So all the audience loved it. That's what they were really into, and it went over really, really well.
I mean, I think it's a little ingenious for you guys to foresee and decide that Chi LaRue was the person to come on to the AVN show, which I was there numerous times and saw, and I thought he always did a good job.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, it was entertaining. We didn't have any budget to pay anybody, so we were providing the music and he was providing the singing. And so my brother wrote funny, comical songs for him to sing, and we performed them in the show, you know.
It was fun. It was like a little family, like a small family, right?
Yeah,
In
right
those
back
days.
then, yeah.
Yeah. So Is Teaching the Roost still part of it?
Not part of AVN, but he was at AVN this year. Yeah.
All right. He did a show?
No, he was a presenter, but he wasn't performing.
Yeah. He's a nice person.
Yeah.
So now, who made these decisions? You made these, or Tony made them? Because I've noticed
the decisions to get
hire the Lil Wayne and Cardi B.
He made the decision that because up until then I had gotten a lot of big bands. I got Flo Rida.
That's what I thought.
To be in the show.
Yeah, he was cool.
Yeah, he was.
He cool?
Back in the. Yeah, he was.
I don't think I was there, but I heard it, and I like that.
Back in the days of Mandalay Bay, we got them. We got. In the early 2000s, we had Smash Mouth. They were really big.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, they had done that song that was in the Shrek movie, Rockstar.
Mm-hmm.
So we had them in the show. So we had been working, and we had Little John and the Ying Yang Twins.
I was there in that one.
Yeah, that was at the Venetian. So this was before Tony back then, but back then I had to sort of, kind of use, smoke and mirrors to get acts like that to agree to do the show.
Really?
Yeah, to get them to do it. And now it's...
You contacted them?
Yeah, through one way or the other, whether it was through the management or knowing someone that knew somebody and getting them to perform in the show. We had a rock band called Buck Cherry. I don't know if you remember those guys. They were pretty big. They played in the show back then, and this is in the 2000s. And then when we got into the 2010s, then it was more then Tony came in and took over the company. Then it was like, okay, well, I'm gonna sell sponsorships to get us the funding to be able to get these big acts to do the show. So someone like Cardi B
at the time when she's the hottest
last year.
Yeah,
but it was the same thing with Flo Rida when he first played in the show at Mandalay Bay, and then we had him again like 3 years ago or 4 years ago. We had him again, but when he first played in the show, he did that song. He had 2 or 3 super huge hits when he was first starting out. We had him in the award show back then. That was pretty big.
Did you ever have two big acts on the same night?
Yeah, well, we had him, and then we had the rock band Buck Cherry.
Okay.
And in the early 2000s, as a matter of fact, we had Vince Neil open the show and sang "Girls, Girls, Girls." You were probably at that show.
Maybe, yeah.
That was the last time I ever played on stage. I played on stage with him to open the show to do "Girls, Girls, Girls." And then after that, that was it. Because the show had gotten so big to that point. For the previous few years, there was always a discussion of, wow, this show is getting so big. I don't know if I can produce it and play in it at the same time. It's too much.
Hard,
yeah, it's too much to do it. So then that's when the decision was made, okay, yeah, it's time. I better just produce the show and let someone else play the music in the show.
Yeah, that big money and all those people, right? A lot of focus has to be put on.
Yeah, I mean, it's just too hard to do all that stuff.
I understand.
You're doing every single thing.
Yeah. So, it's exciting. How did you feel about being part of this? And just because, let's just not get too crazy and say just because these big acts are there, it makes it better. But it does give it more excitement,
right.
Mentally stimulating, thinking about, mainstream artists being there and being part of it, participating.
Right.
It's got to feel better, but it doesn't take it away from our family in those days, you know what I mean? But how did it feel to know that you and your brother, he's not here, but you're really part of making it become what it is?
Yeah, I mean, you feel like, wow, man, it's the predictions that when you go back to the days when they were going, you'd say, you got to come to the award show, and they would go, it's a bunch of fucking bullshit. Get lost, kid. Yeah. To the point now where it's the hugest thing. And like, I know guys that were around back in those days, they're like, that's a fucking bunch of bullshit. I'm not going to that. But the younger talent of today and the producers of today, they're still just as excited as everybody was back then, if not more so, to go to the show, because this is all new and exciting to them. I mean, we had 2 trophy girls in the show this year that were probably the youngest I've ever had. They were both 19 or 20 years old, and they were just ecstatic, over the moon to be part of it, because it's new and exciting. And working with the newer talent is the thing that enables me to continue to keep doing this year after year, and you get your energy from them, you know? And I always try to look at it as every year like, okay, how am I going to do this again? Not, well, I'm just going to mail it in because I've been doing this for a long time. I'll just do the same shit I did last year and 10 years ago and all that. I'm always trying to look at it as like starting from scratch again and trying to do the absolute best possible show I can.
So you put a lot of your soul into it.
Yeah. So you're thinking about it all year long. You know, once you start getting into September, now you're working on it constantly, you know, until it's done, you know. But throughout the year, you're always thinking, oh, you know, maybe we should do this. You know, you're constantly thinking.
Yeah, I mean, you know, talking to you brings back memories of, you know, the AVN. It was, you know, that was a great time. I liked XRCO too, but, you know, AVN is another step up, you know what I mean? As far as, obviously, I don't even know if XRCO is going on today, but in my time.
It still does, yeah.
Yeah, but, you know, AVN has stepped it up quite a bit, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is what we figured it would be, which is the biggest night for the adult entertainment industry. And you've got the talent. And one of the reasons is it's not just because, we have Cardi B or we have Lil Wayne. That's not the reason. The reason is because the talent and the companies have bought into it. Like, as much as you were saying, like, you were pissed off that you didn't win. Well, the talent,
a lot of times, right?
The talent is elated and euphoric, and they're on cloud 9 for a year when they win, and they are crushed and devastated and despondent when they don't win. You know, they're thinking, I hope I win Female Performer of the Year, and they don't. Or male performer, the guys too. You know, they win. Like, guys will sit there, guys or girls, doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't really mean anything. But when they win, boy, there's tears of joy. And when they don't win, there's tears of despair, and their soul and heart is just crushed. You know, so it really means something to them. And so that's why it is what it is. If the talent didn't believe in it, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you have Cardi B or Lil Wayne or Diplo or anybody. It's not gonna, you know, it's not gonna be as big as it is without the talent wanting to be a part of it.
I agree. I was part of that talent that, you know, was fucking. I won a lot of awards, you know, from you guys and from XRCO and from Fox, you know, and from Night of the Stars. I got the legend. But yeah, it was a big deal. It was a big deal, and when you didn't win, you know, you were fucking pissed, but then when you won, it was amazing.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Even if you said throughout the year it doesn't mean shit, when you were announced as the winner, it meant something.
I never said that because I was always a realist. You know what I mean?
Right.
I never was a bullshitter.
Right.
I'll come pretty straight with everything I do. But anyways, yeah, it's a great event, and that's interesting. Can you tell me what, at this point in time, after all these shows, can you give me like 2 that were your favorite shows that you thought did the best? You know, the performers, not performers, but you know, the artists, music artist or comedian, whoever. Who of those 2? I'm giving you 2, not just one, right?
Right.
You know, because it gives you more opportunity to disclose.
Right.
But what were your 2 favorite shows? You know, not yours, but the person.
You mean the people performing in the show?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, Cardi B was pretty big because I watched for the first time ever the talent just, they, you know, instead of just being, hey, we're the shit, we're the talent, they all melted into like little girls in 1963 screaming for the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. I mean, they all just turned into the hugest wild-eyed fans. They went crazy, that was amazing to see how they all just became fans and were just like everything else was gone. Yeah, so that was pretty good.
You liked her too? She was cool? She was great.
I didn't. No, I really didn't talk to her that much. But I mean, she was really nice. She had a great attitude. 2 weeks later, she performed in the Grammys and won a Grammy.
Really?
2 weeks after doing our show.
That's great.
And on our show, after she got done with her first performance, she said, "I've been looking so forward to this show." She goes, "More than the Grammys. I don't know why." So she says it.
New York, what's up?
Yeah. So she said it was great. So I know they had a great time, and she had a good time. Everybody always does. So that was really good. And we've had a lot of comedians over the years. And the way I always judge it, even with the bands and stuff, is because when you're the producer of the show, you can't sit there and be thinking about what you personally like or what you think. The way I judge it is, if they're roaring with laughter, the comedian's a success. And when I'm hearing that roaring with laughter, then I think, wow, this is that she's going over good, or he's going over really good. And that's what you're looking for. I don't even know what they're saying. I just know I'm hearing the audience react. Then when I get back here and I'm watching the video, then I can hear what they said. But the night we're doing the show, you don't have time to be a fan and listen. You just want to make sure everything is working, everybody's where they're supposed to be, everybody's doing their job. And everything's coming off that the way you want it to.
So who's this number two?
Number two, you mean in terms of like comedians?
No, just all your performers. So I gave you two people to be the top. Are you just going to give it Cardi B, or are you going to give me another one?
Well, I mean, there was a lot of them, but you're talking about, I guess I've been doing this for so long, there was different eras. If you want to go back to the Vince Neil, we opened the show with Vince Neil singing Girls, Girls, Girls at the Venetian back in like 2002. That got a huge reaction. People were on their feet going nuts.
But for you personally?
I don't know. I mean, maybe that one might be because I actually played on stage with them. But one of the things that I've always done with these shows, and I would like to feel like that's another reason why why they've been successful, is I strive to not make it about me. To me, I'm always working to make it about the talent, not about me, not inserting myself into the show. Just doing the show, being there, making sure that, planning it out, deciding how it's going to go, and getting the right people in the right place. And if everybody just does their job, it'll work. So there's where you get your satisfaction, when you're standing out there and say, okay, let's see what they do. Because from my point of view also too, you got to remember, you produced, we said, 1,800 movies?
Yeah, 1,600.
1,600, right? So you guys are working all year long, right? On sets, you're shooting movies, you're shooting scenes. It's no different. They're doing the same thing that you were doing, right? So, but when we get to my production, everybody shows up on your set and they sit down in their seats and they go, okay, we're here. Let's see what you got, and that's like, everybody's there. Like, okay, but everybody's not on your set when you're shooting that scene, or when you're shooting that movie. But when we get to my set, all you guys are there. The producers, the advertisers, the talent, everybody comes and they sit down and they go, okay, we're here. Let's see what you got, which is a huge, tremendous amount of pressure.
I would think, yeah.
It is, but,
After all these years, I mean, does it still feel like a big lead of weight on you? Or is
no, I mean, I thrive on it.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, it's, I always tell everybody that's the probably the weird quirk about me. Like, the more pressure there is, the more energy I derive from it. Yeah, it's like, it's almost a crushing amount of pressure to do that show live that night, or to do both shows. But it's like I really get off on that pressure. My whole thing has always been, whatever the most difficult job is, not the most fucked up where people are getting things wrong, but that's the pressure spot. So to me, I'm like, yeah, that's the spot I want. So I'm fine with it.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, lesser people would crumble, right?
Probably would, you know, but to me, it's like, it's a rush.
That's interesting.
Yeah, like I say, I get off on the pressure.
Good information. Do you, yeah, we're almost done here.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like it. I mean, from what I take, you like every bit of the new as you do the old.
Yeah.
And maybe even more than new because you got more to work with.
Yeah, you keep going up and up and up. You know, there was a lot of great things about what happened years ago, but there's a lot of great things about what's going on today. And you just have to be able to roll with it and realize there's new technology, there's new things. Now we have cam girls are a big part of the show because camming is a big part of the industry. There was nothing back in the 80s or 90s. It was phone sex lines, you know. There was no camming. There wasn't even laptops back then. So it's all this changing stuff. And yeah, you know, like I say, working with, that's why I always try to incorporate new people into the show every year and have a good blend and a good mix of talent that's involved in the show, and try to seek out people that have never been on stage before and never given a chance, and then ask them to be part of it, because that's how I think you keep everything new and fresh and try to keep everybody involved. And some people go like, well, how come I'm not going up this year? I went up last year. And I always tell everybody, it's not because we don't like you or all of a sudden now we hate you or you're used up. It's just we're trying to incorporate other people. You know,
I can understand because I was excited to go up. I was a little bit nervous, you know what I mean?
Right.
I was kind of young. I'm a more introverted person, but
sure.
You know, I was excited to go up there and be part of it. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And then that's really good. Now everybody comes to rehearsal. We didn't even have rehearsals back then.
No, I did rehearsals, yeah.
In the studio.
In the studio, right?
We did rehearsals in the studio back then. Yeah, and you did come to that, but. Nowadays, we do actually rehearse on the stage with the teleprompter in the room. Yeah. And everybody shows up because everybody knows that. I always tell them there's only one solid rule that can't be broken. If you don't show up to rehearsal, you can't be in the show. So if somebody blows it off, I don't put them in the show the next night.
No respect.
Yeah, because it's not just no respect for the show. It's like, well, wait a second. All these other people, they got other stuff to do, but they came. Yeah. You know, so I feel like not only am I protecting the integrity of the show, but I'm protecting the rest of the field. Like, it's not fair that she blew off rehearsal and she still gets to be in the show the next night, but she was there hanging out for an hour and a half when she had 9 million people asking her to go to dinner or do this with a sponsor or do that. But it was like, nope, all these people know that, hey, this is important and I got to do it. So,
I mean, as a producer and, you know, a knower of film and production and the way people work together when they have practice, right?
Right.
Is very important for them to show up on
right.
a big show like that.
Yeah, and the other thing is nobody gets paid. That's another way you know you're getting the best performance. Everybody's here and they're part of the show because they want to be. Not because they're getting paid or they're getting a free hotel room. They get nothing. The thing is you get to be in the show and be a part of it.
And a stage is like a piece of history. I mean, time frozen like all film, right?
Right.
But it's there. You're there, and you'll always be there. That's why I want to get that tape because I don't have it, right? You know, of me, you know,
right.
presenting because it's so memorable. And you'll always be part of it, right?
Right.
You know, so it is an important endeavor, you know?
Well, that's why I always tell them, you get one shot.
Yeah.
And then whatever happens on that video, you have to live with it forever. Yeah. You know, it's not like a normal stage show, right? Like we do this stage show and, oh, we know we fucked this up. Well, tomorrow night we'll correct that. It'll be better. There is no tomorrow night. You got one shot. That's it. If you party all week long and you look like shit and you lost your voice and you can't talk on stage, you're going to hear yourself sounding hoarse and looking lousy forever. Every time you see that, you'll go, oh, God. You know, but that's why I always say to everybody, you get one shot. Now, I get another shot, but not at the same show. Because next year it's a whole different show with all different people. So even I don't get a second shot, you know.
I'm going to put you on the spot, right? I'm going to put you on the spot right here. You just came to me, right? So I was, the little presenter, right? It was great. I did my job correctly. I know I did. But I've seen some very good hosts on there. I'm talking talent-wise, right?
Yeah.
Talent, the actor, stars. Who was the best female and the best male?
Well, we don't really have a lot of male hosts. The last male host we had was in 2015. It was Tommy Pistol.
Well, co-host. Let's say co-host.
Yeah, but I'm saying before then, the last male host was when you were there in 1995, Stephen St. Croix. Oh. In terms of porn talent. Now we've had comedian guys that were hosting the show, but in terms of male talent, we had Stephen St. Croix as one of the hosts in 1995, and then we never had male talent again.
Oh, that's a bad sign on St. Croix's part.
2015. He was a young guy then, and so then we had Tommy Pistol.
Really? Why did you pick him?
Because, he was a really funny guy, and plus my brother wrote a song that he performed with Alexis Texas. It was a funny comedy song that we had. It was a ridiculous porn song that was really, really funny, and we knew he could pull it off. And we decided to go ahead and go with him. So, yeah, that was really good. And
the female, what's number one female then? They did the best. I know a lot of them did great. I saw Jessie Jane do it. She did great, right?
Yeah, you're going through a lot of girls for a long time.
But when it comes to your head, boom.
You had 1996. You had Diana Loren was a big part of the show back then. You had, like you said, Jessie Jane hosted the show one year. But a lot of times I look at who's relaxed and who comes off the most natural. Not that anybody did a bad job, but who comes off the most natural. And you hate to say the names.
I'm putting you on the spot, sorry.
No, because then the other people think that you don't like them.
I know.
And that you didn't like them. But, I do like them all, and they all brought something different to the show, and I thought they all did a really good job. And you want me to name a girl, right? Yeah, I don't think I can really do that.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think I can.
You're too nice, yeah.
Yeah, all the hosts we picked have been pretty good. Nobody has been really shitty. So
can you give me top three then? Make it more easy?
Top three. Well, I know 2 years ago we had a cam girl named Bailey Rain, and she was probably the most natural.
Yeah.
Talking on stage, 4,000 people, it didn't faze her, TV cameras, lights. She just delivered her lines with such ease. You could have dropped a nuclear bomb backstage and she wouldn't have even noticed. Wow. She was so good. Like you say, Jessie Jane was good. Jessie Jane hosted it a bunch of different times. She was good.
So I was correct. She was very good, right?
Yeah, she was good. Asa Akira was good. This past year we had Nikki Benz. You might know her still, right?
I never met her before my time. After my time.
Yeah, but all of them have different personalities and different capabilities. So when you're working with them and you're writing the script for them, you're trying to think of what is going to make that person look the best they can. So, in other words, I'm not just going to throw them out there and say, here, this is what we did, this is what we wrote, you say this, and you sink or swim on your own. That's not how I'm working. I'm trying to make everybody, including every single presenter, look the absolute best they can. So I'm trying to build everybody up and make them look as great as they can possibly look and do something that enable them to do something that they're capable of doing instead of giving them stuff that maybe they're not capable of doing. So, you have... even like I say with presenters, you might say, okay, I'll let these two people do the heavy lifting and this person will just say one line because that's the best for them. And they appreciate it. You know, they do.
But let me add to this. It's not as easy as you might think going up in front of 4,000 or 5,000 people on a stage with everybody looking at you.
No, because the conventional wisdom is, and I used to think this in the early days, well, what are you afraid of? You fuck. You fuck in front of people. Why would you be afraid of going out on stage? It's a whole different trip. That's why. Because they always say to me, you're not asking me to fuck. You're asking me to go out there and fuck. That's not a problem. You're asking me to go out there and talk. That's a problem.
Yes. If you were trained to fuck in front of 4,000 people all the time, then it'd probably be a little easier.
Right.
But anyway, so this is the end of the question.
All right.
Last question.
Okay.
You know? Simple question. Can you describe in 2 words your experience in this business last 38 years, sounds like, right? Can you describe it in 2 words? And what are those 2 words?
2 words to describe being in the business all those years?
You had a lot of different experiences, so it should be interesting words you choose.
Well, I guess I would, if I can use 3 words, I would say can't believe it. because you know, you never would have thought, you know, I never thought, oh, okay, I never really almost felt like, okay, I'm getting into this business and this is what I'm going to do. It just sort of happened, you know, it sort of happened. And then you're doing something and you know that you're good at it and you, yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's what you do, you know? So it's just, I don't know if that answers the question, but.
Yeah, I mean, can't believe it. We'll say believe it is 1 word and can't is 1 word.
Right.
Right? That's pretty much what it is, you know what I mean?
Sure.
You know, I want to add this on. A lot of the people that I've had on the show it seems like the stars, the universe, the gods have put a lot of people or dragged them and aligned them in this business. You know what I mean? Supernaturally. Right? It seems strange, you know?
Yeah.
Yours is not supernaturally, but, you know, you're in this business and you were pulled in a little bit because you needed it, and it just worked. So it's very strange. This business has its own life. And I call it mother porn or something, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it has its own entity, its own life. And for so many people, I think it's a beautiful, beautiful place.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think probably most people in the business, especially talent, didn't think that they were going to be porn talent when they were graduating from high school. Maybe now more days they do, but not really.
You never know, but maybe I did.
Maybe you did, I don't know.
But anyway, yeah, that's the end of the show. TTBoy, thank you so much, Gary, for coming by and
Thanks for
spending all this
having
time.
me. Yeah.
Thanks.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you. And yeah, keep doing a great job. It sounds really good about this, you know, all these shows. It makes me miss it a little bit, you know what I mean? The show, you know what I mean? But anyways, thanks for coming.
Thank you.